Hey there, and welcome to Weeb Novel Audiobook, your hub for epic fanfics, original stories, and thrilling adventures brought to life. Make sure to subscribe for regular updates and swing by my Patreon for early access and exclusive mature content. Now, sit back and enjoy the journey.
And about their ace, Ushijima. His spikes have some unusual characteristics. The room fell silent as everyone turned to listen carefully. Tomorrow's match would be another battle. But they weren't backing down. 4/8 White Heavy Checkmark Chapter 50, Chapter 50, Preparations Ushijima's Spike. I've heard of this. Hearing Akira's words, Sugawara said thoughtfully from the side, I heard that his spike is extremely powerful. It is simply difficult for ordinary people to defend against his attack. That's right. Daichi added. This is also the impression that most people in the prefecture have of him. A super scoring ace. Akira nodded with a smile. That's right. But when I was playing against others in the arena some time ago, I heard some rumors about Ushijima Wakatoshi. Huh? What rumors? At this, everyone looked over with curiosity. Everyone knows Ushijima Wakatoshi's spiking power, but they've overlooked a crucial detail about him. If you don't pay attention, you will suffer a big loss. Details. Hearing his words, Kageyama's eyes couldn't help but light up. After experiencing Akira's countless tactical instructions, he had become very sensitive to this word. Facing his gaze, Akira said unhurriedly, this detail is Ushijima Wakatoshi is left-handed. Left-handed? Hearing Akira's words, Daichi said thoughtfully, I once saw a report about Ushijima Wakatoshi. It mentioned this, but I didn't really think much of it. That's right. Akira smiled slightly and continued. Often, it's these easily overlooked details that are the key to victory or defeat. Ushijima Wakatoshi's dominant hand being different from most players means that his spiking angle, the rotation of the ball, and other factors are different from what we usually encounter. If we're not prepared beforehand, and then add his terrifying spiking power, it's hard to defend against it in the moment. Akira's words hit everyone in Karasuno like a thunderclap. This. Ushijima's powerful spikes, combined with this never-before-seen angle. The thought of facing such spikes unprepared in tomorrow's game made Daichi break into a cold sweat. So, what do we do? Should we go ask Ushijima to practice with us? Hinata, flustered, blurted out his thoughts. Hearing his words, Kageyama couldn't help but punch him. Baka! What are you thinking? Have you lost your mind? Then, turning his attention to Akira, who was smiling, Kageyama spoke indignantly, you always have a plan when you bring up something like this. Spill it already? Stop dragging it out. After Kageyama said this, everyone else snapped out of their initial shock and turned their attention to Akira. Yeah. Akira, since you mentioned it, you must have a countermeasure. Akira nodded with a smile. That's why I called everyone over. As he spoke, they arrived at the volleyball hall. Akira, walking in front, opened the door and turned back with a confident look. I can imitate Ushijima Wakatoshi's left-handed spike so that everyone can experience it firsthand. What that ball really looks like. What? Akira, are you also left-handed? Tanaka asked in shock. Why haven't I heard this before? Haha. Of course, I am not left-handed. Akira grinned. But imitating a left-handed spike. Isn't that hard for me? What? You can mimic a left-handed spike. Before the season's qualifiers, Akira certainly wouldn't have been able to pull this off. But after his intense training during the Miyagi Arena Tour, his ball control had improved dramatically. Now, mimicking spikes, even left-handed ones, was within his ability. After hearing Akira's words, everyone in Karasuno stared at him in disbelief. although Akira had said them plenty of times before. Being able to imitate a left-handed spike was another level of shocking. People's dominant hands are vastly different. If someone who normally uses their right hand tries to do something complex with their left, it's almost impossible to match the same level of skill. Likewise, for a right-handed person to spike a ball with both power and technique using their left, that should be impossible. Sugawara spoke up with skepticism. Akira, it's not that we don't believe you, it's just imitating a left-handed spike is a bit much. Facing their doubts, Akira just smiled slightly. Come in and see for yourselves. He then turned and stepped into the volleyball hall. Behind him, everyone exchanged looks before following him in CD. The left-handed spike has two biggest characteristics. Akira explained, standing before them. First, the positioning when blocking the net is different. Normally, when blocking, we jump towards the hitter's right arm. But when facing a left-handed spiker, this habit must change. You have to jump toward his left arm instead. This small difference doesn't require special practice, just awareness during the match. What really needs attention is the second point. In the quiet gym, everyone sat on the floor as Akira continued explaining. A spike hit with the left hand has a completely different trajectory and spin compared to a right-handed spike. This affects both blocking and receiving. Without adjusting for it, defending against his spikes is nearly impossible. So, we start training now. Akira's smile turned serious. If they waited until after tomorrow's semi-final match to prepare, there wouldn't be enough time. And practicing during the lunch break would wear them out before the finals. That's why he had to use tonight's training session to get his teammates accustomed to it. Receiving practice starts with Nishinoya, Akira announced. As the team's libero, Nishinoya was the key to their defense. And as someone with a natural instinct for reading the ball, he was the perfect player to start with. All right. Nishinoya jumped up, eyes blazing with excitement. Let's do this. Everyone gathered around, their doubts now replaced with determination. If anyone could prepare them for Ushijima, it was Akira. 5/8 White Heavy Checkmark Chapter 51, Chapter 51, Preparation, 2, Haikyuu Ch 51 In the empty gym, Nishinoya crouched slightly, eyes locked on the opposite side of the net. Kageyama. A normal toss will do. I'll still spike with my right hand. Hearing Akira's words, Kageyama looked doubtful again. But at this point, there was no other choice, he could only trust him. Nishinoya took a deep breath and called out, I'm ready. Bring it on. All right. Akira nodded. Nishinoya-senpai. I won't use too much force on the first ball, just focus on the ball's rotation. Got it? Nishinoya's gaze sharpened in anticipation. Akira assessed Nishinoya's stance, then tossed the ball to Kageyama. Kageyama set the ball with his usual pinpoint accuracy. Outside the court, the rest of the team watched in complete silence. Akira had claimed he could imitate a left-handed spike with his right hand. It sounded absurd, impossible, even. But if anyone could do something so bizarre, it was Akira. The sound of sneakers squeaking on the polished floor filled the air. Akira jumped, his approach crisp and precise. Bang! A seemingly ordinary spike shot across the court. Nishinoya's pupils shrank. The ball looked normal. The speed was moderate. The spin was subtle. He had received balls like this thousands of times. Yet, the instincts honed from all those hours of practice screamed at him this was different. There was no time to hesitate. Nishinoya stepped forward, arms in position. Smack! The ball struck his forearms, but instead of a clean PS, it rebounded wildly, bouncing off to the far side of the court. What? The first to react wasn't Nishinoya, but the rest of Karasuno. That ball wasn't even that fast. Did Nishinoya actually miss? They had all seen it clearly. The ball wasn't powerful, nor particularly difficult looking. And yet, Karasuno's most reliable receiver had completely misread it. Nishinoya. What happened? Tanaka called out, bewildered. Nishinoya, still frozen in place, finally snapped out of his daze. That was strange. His face lit up with excitement. Akira. Again. Same exact spike. The rest of the team exchanged glances. If even Nishinoya, who was rarely fazed by anything, was reacting like this. Maybe Akira really had done it. Maybe he really had replicated a left-handed spike. No way. It was common knowledge that a player's dominant hand was a massive factor in their spiking style. A right-handed player switching to their left hand? Their precision would plummet. Imitating a specific left-handed spiker? With accuracy? Impossible. Yet Akira stood on the court, calm and confident. Fine, let's go again, he said, meeting Nishinoya's eager gaze. This time, I'll use more power. No problem. Nishinoya grinned. Akira nodded, then turned to Kageyama. Another toss. Another sharp approach. Another jump. Bang. The ball soared at a higher speed than before. Smack. This time, Nishinoya made a better read, but the ball still bounced off course. He clenched his fists. Again. Akira smirked. All right. This time, full power. The air in the gym shifted. The team watched as Akira adjusted his stance, his steps heavier, his posture sharper. The sheer intensity of his approach was different. Then bang. The ball shot across the court like a missile. A blur. Before anyone could register it, the ball slammed into Nishinoya's arms. He absorbed the impact as best he could, but the sheer force sent it flying into the back wall. What the hell was that? That was insane. The team erupted in shock. Even Nishinoya, usually unshaken, had wide eyes. Akira smirked. That, he said, was close to the force of Ushijima Wakatashi's spike. A heavy silence fell over the court. Everyone had seen how difficult that ball was to handle. And Ushijima's spikes were even more devastating. Nishinoya exhaled sharply. Then grinned. Perfect. I need more. Me too. Hinata jumped up excitedly. I wanna try next. Akira chuckled, stretching his arms. Line up, he said. We're going all night. 6/8 White Heavy Checkmark Chapter 52, Chapter 52, Done Smack. This is already Tsukishima's 12th attempt. He gritted his teeth and moved to the back, waiting for the others to finish receiving the ball. So far, only Nishinoya has been able to barely receive Akira's spike after 10 tries, and even then, it isn't stable. There are two major difficulties in handling this kind of ball. One is the rotational force and unpredictable trajectory that defies common sense. The other is the sheer power behind Akira's spike. Even if it were a standard spinning ball, receiving it with this level of force would be difficult. Under this immense pressure, Tanaka wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead. He glanced at Akira on the other side of the net. Even after hitting so many high-intensity spikes, this guy wasn't even out of breath. He looked completely unfazed. This kid, what a monster. Smack. Another spike flew toward Tanaka. He barely managed to receive it, though the impact still stung his arms. Rubbing his sore muscles, he moved back in line. Despite the number of spikes, Akira's power hadn't dropped in the slightest. All right. It's getting late. Seeing the exhaustion on his teammates' faces, Akira smiled and said, let's stop here for today. If we don't rest properly, it'll affect tomorrow's match. One more. Just one more. Several voices called out in unison. Especially Nishinoya. Haha. It's good that you feel that way. Akira chuckled. At least everyone is getting a feel for it. When you face a left-handed spike tomorrow, you'll only need a bit more time to adjust. Perfectly receiving it in such a short period isn't realistic. That's right. Coach Yokai, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped in. You need to know when to stop training. It's already late. Hearing that, everyone finally calmed down. If they continued to train without proper rest, it could affect their performance in tomorrow's match. Let's wrap it up. Remember, if you don't clear the opponent in front of you, there's no final to look forward to. All this preparation will mean nothing if you don't win tomorrow. Yes, sir. The next day. The third round of the qualifier league. Sendai City Gymnasium. Although there were only 4 teams competing today, the crowd was larger than ever. Spectators filled the stands, eagerly awaiting the matches. Today's schedule consisted of 2 major matches. One was the semifinals between Shirei Darizawa, the reigning champions of Miyagi Prefecture, and a powerhouse team, Minami Kutanami. The other was between this year's biggest dark horse, Karasuno, and another well-known strong team, Josenji. Both matches promised to be thrilling, attracting numerous volleyball enthusiasts to the venue. The first match was bound to be a spectacle. Every game involving Shirei Darizawa was worth watching. Even against a weaker opponent, Ushijima Wakatashi's sheer power made for an incredible display of strength and precision. And with Minami Kutanami as their opponent, this match would be an intense battle between 2 strong teams. However, the second match was even more intriguing. Josenji had long been considered a top-tier team, earning praise for their stable and disciplined play style. Although some controversy had surrounded their team in recent years, their overall strength had only grown, making them a formidable opponent. This year, they stormed into the top 4 of the tournament with their strongest performance yet. And then, there was their opponent Karasuno High School. A team that had once been a dominant force in Miyagi Prefecture, frequently reaching the national stage. However, after their legendary coach retired due to illness, their strength began to decline. In recent years, they had faded from major tournaments. They were labeled as the fallen powerhouse, a crow that can't fly, but this year, things were different. During the group stage, they were placed in Group A, the infamous Group of Death. The group contained not only the top-seeded Aoba Josai but also another formidable school, Date Tech, known as the Iron Wall. Just 3 months prior, Karasuno had suffered a crushing defeat against Date Tech in the prefectural tournament. Yet, despite being counted out by almost everyone, Karasuno had risen again. They shocked everyone by defeating both Date Tech and Aoba Josai, securing their spot in the knockout rounds. And they didn't just win, they dominated both teams with a decisive 2-0 victory. They then carried that momentum into their next match, crushing Izumi Tate in another landslide win to advance to the semifinals. However, many spectators weren't just here for Karasuno's team. They were here for one player. Outside the stadium, fans gathered eagerly. Shintani. You're here too. Oh. Kimura. Didn't expect to see you here. Haha. Of course, I wouldn't miss this. I saw a bunch of familiar faces from the volleyball scene earlier. There are definitely going to be even more people here in the afternoon. Man, today's matches are just too exciting. I even spotted a couple of pro players watching from the VIP section. What? Even those guys? And get this, there's a rumor that Ere and another former national player will be in the stands for the finals. No way. That can't be true. I heard it's been confirmed. That's amazing. I just hope we get to see Akira's signature serve again. The last time I saw it, I was completely blown away. He might save it for the finals. Yeah, I heard he doesn't use it unless it's necessary. But can Shirei Darizawa really push Karasuno into a disadvantage? Haha. Guess we'll find out soon enough. The conversation between these two was just a small glimpse of the buzz surrounding the event. Many others were equally excited, eagerly anticipating a clash of titans. The energy in the gymnasium was electric. Everyone was waiting for the matches to begin. 7/8 White Heavy Checkmark Chapter 53, Chapter 53, Match Day Chirping. In the vast volleyball hall, the sound of players warming up constantly echoed. Today's stands were packed with spectators, buzzing with excitement. Makoto Shimada and his friend Takigami navigated through the corridor, searching for seats. Suddenly, Shimada's eyes lit up as he spotted a familiar face sitting in the row ahead. He tapped the man's shoulder and grinned. "Moriyuki. I didn't think you'd have time to watch the game today." The man looked up, momentarily stunned, before breaking into a smile. "Shimada." "Takigami." Seeing his old friends, Yuki gestured for them to join him. "Come, sit here. You guys are here to watch too." "Haha, of course." Shimada and Takigami exchanged knowing smiles and sat down. "I asked you to come with us before, but you said you were too busy." "Yeah." Takigami chimed in. "You've missed so many great matches." Yuki sighed and shook his head. "I know. I didn't want to miss them either, but work kept me tied up. Luckily, my boss gave me time off for today's final." "That's great," Shimada said enthusiastically. "Watching the final between Karasuno and Shiratorizawa this afternoon is going to be intense." "Huh?" Yuki raised an eyebrow. "Do you guys think Karasuno can actually beat Shiratorizawa?" Takigami hesitated. "Well, I think they might have a chance. After all, we've been watching their matches the past 2 days." "Humph. I think the final match will be between Jozenji and Shiratorizawa." A voice from the side cut into their conversation. The three men turned to see a man wearing Jozenji's team colors looking at them with disdain. Around them, more voices chimed in. "Yeah. No way Karasuno can stand up to a powerhouse like Jozenji. I've never even heard of any standout players on Karasuno's team." "Exactly. I haven't watched their matches, but for an unknown school to reach the semifinals, they must have just gotten lucky. This morning's match is going to be easy for Jozenji." Shimada and his friends exchanged glances, momentarily speechless. The man smirked, thinking they were intimidated. "Just watch closely. Jozenji is going to win." Takigami clenched his fists, ready to retort, but Shimada placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let's just watch the match." As more spectators filled the stands, the players continued their warm-ups. "Damn, this team looks tough," Daichi muttered as Karasuno watched Jozenji from across the court. Since both teams were warming up at the same time, they could observe each other closely. Jozenji's players had initially known little about Karasuno. They had only heard that the team was once a strong contender but had since declined. However, in this tournament, Karasuno had been making a surprising comeback. Jozenji's third-year ace, Seiji Okugaku, narrowed his eyes as he watched Karasuno's movements. "This won't be an easy match." Yuto Kamika, another third-year attacker, nodded in agreement. "We need to keep a close eye on their No. 7. "Oh." Okugaku turned to him. "Why him?" "I think their number 10 looks more dangerous. He hasn't shown much yet, but I get a bad feeling about him." Kamika shook his head. "Number 7 is our biggest threat." Okugaku frowned. "How do you know?" "I saw one of his matches last year," Kamika said, his voice serious. "When?" "At the junior high league. My cousin played against his team." Okugaku raised an eyebrow. "And what happened?" Kamiki exhaled, recalling the memory. "After that match, my cousin was devastated. He nearly quit volleyball altogether." "That bad?" Okugaku's expression turned grim. Kamika nodded. That number 7 led his team to win the entire junior high league. Not only that, but he was also named Most Valuable Player, MVP. As Josenji absorbed this information, Karasuno continued their final stretches, unaware of the reputation that was beginning to build around their No 7 Akira. The battle ahead was going to be fierce. P.S. Akira gave PTSD to his cousin LOL8/8 white heavy checkmark. As of now I uploaded all the missed chapters. The Law ST update was on March 3rd. Now I have uploaded all the missed chapters. Thank you for your support and patience. Red Heart Chapter 54. Chapter 54, Match 1, the champion team of the Junior High School League. Still MVP. Hearing this, CG Okugaku said in shock, in previous years, shouldn't all of these players go to Shiratorizawa? Why did he come to a school like Karasuno? I don't know. Yuto Kamika shook his head and said. I specifically looked into it later and heard that Shiratorizawa actively recruited him, but he refused. Huh. CG Okugaku turned his head, glancing at Akira on the other side of the net with confusion. Can anyone really refuse an offer from a powerhouse like Shiratorizawa? That's incredible. If I had passed Shiratorizawa's exam, I definitely wouldn't be at Josenji right now. Yuto Kamika smirked slightly and said, maybe some people just have that kind of confidence. Wherever they go, that team will rise to the top. Hey. CG, what are you two whispering about over there? Hurry up and finish warming up. Terushima Yuiji's loud voice snapped them back into reality. Right, what are we even thinking about? Okugaku sighed. Either way, we're graduating soon. Yuto Kamika nodded. For now, let's just take care of the underclass N. Chirping. Warm UPS were over. Line up. After the referee confirmed the starting lineups, the match began. Unlike Karasuno's intense and focused formation, Josenji's side had occasional bursts of laughter coming from their players, particularly Terushima. CG Okugaku gritted his teeth. No matter how many times he told them to focus, they always ended up goofing around again. It was as if they were born with zero self-control. The first serve of the game went to Josenji. Terushima. Serve properly. No problem. Terushima's jump serve had a unique, almost unpredictable movement. But Tanaka received it perfectly in the back row. Kageyama was already in position. Without hesitation, he set the ball up for Akira. From the qualifiers to the current semifinals, whenever Akira spiked the first ball of the match, he had never failed to score. Momentum was everything. Akira's spike could both fire up Karasuno's energy and weaken their opponent's morale. Here it comes. Yuto Kamika's pupils shrank. Watch high M. 3 blockers from Josenji moved to intercept Akira's attack. Jump. Block. Akira soared up at the same time. Spike. Smack. The ball slammed through the gap between the blockers. The libero in the back row barely reacted before the ball crashed into the floor. That ball, actually went through the block. Libero Toyoshin looked at the impact spot in disbelief. Usually, blockers take care of either straight shots or cross-court spikes, while back row defenders cover the remaining areas. But Akira's spike. It was like he ignored the entire blocking system and punched straight through. Toyoshin gulped. If that wasn't just a fluke, then. He didn't dare finish the thought. Damn it. Izaka rubbed his arm, feeling the lingering sting. Did you feel it just now, CG? Yeah. It felt like, even if I had blocked it head on, it still would have gone through. Like getting hit by a truck. CG Okugaku nodded grimly. The spike had grazed both his and Izaka's arms, yet it had still maintained its speed, crashing into the floor before anyone in the back row could react. Don't overthink it, Okugaku said. Let's play a few more points and see what happens. He couldn't afford to make premature judgments. It could lead to critical miscalculations. Chirping. The game resumed. This time, it was Karasuno's serve. Smack. Toyoshin successfully received the serve. As the ball flew toward the setter, Okugaku instinctively glanced at Yuto Kamika. 3 years of playing together had forged a strong connection between them. As Jozenji's ace, Kamiki often handled the most crucial attacks. Here it comes. Akira's eyes narrowed. That feeling of tension tightened in his gut. He had watched Kamika closely in the previous matches. His spikes were powerful, strong enough to repeatedly overpower Date's iron wall of blockers. Kamika didn't hesitate. His approach was flawless. He jumped. And so did Karasuno's blockers Akira, Tsukishima, and Tanaka, all going up at the same time. Kamika was fearless. Even against a triple block, he swung his arm confidently. But just before his hand made contact with the ball, he changed his form. Instead of a spike, he lightly brushed the ball, sending it over the block in a soft drop shot. The ball barely cleared Akira's fingertips before falling straight down behind him. Crap! From the sidelines, Coach Yokai stood up, his face tense. A tip shot. And then bang! A foot suddenly appeared under the ball. With an upside-down bicycle kick, Akira sent the ball flying back into play. The Entei Stadium fell into stunned silence. Then, chaos erupted. The crowd gasped, Jozenji's players froze in shock, and even Karasuno's bench reacted with disbelief. What? A kick save? That was insane. Kageyama immediately chased after the ball. Cover it! Hinata, fully fired up, darted to the net, shouting, "Set it to me." The play continued, Karasuno refusing to back down. For the first time, the confident, free-spirited Jozenji players felt the pressure. This wasn't just any team. This was Karasuno. Give me Power Stones Chapter 55, Chapter 55, Match, 2, the crowd erupted as the play unfolded before their eyes. So strong. From the stands, Iwai watched the action on the court, his eyes gleaming with excitement. With that last move, he had been sure that Karasuno was going to lose the point. But at the most critical moment, Akira had saved the ball that was destined to hit the floor. It's so intense. Kento turned to look at his brother, only to find Iwai staring at the court in pure awe. It's over, he's spiking it. What? There's another change. Kento whipped his head back to the game. The ball that Akira had miraculously saved flew straight toward the other side of the net. There was no way around it at that angle. Controlling the ball and setting it up for a teammate was nearly impossible. The fact that he even managed to save it was impressive in itself. But on the other side of the net, Jozenji's ace, Yuto Kamiya, saw this unfolding before him. Although momentarily stunned, he reacted quickly. He jumped again. As he went in for another spike, the spectators collectively held their breath. It's over. The ball Akira saved won't amount to anything. What a shame. The timing of the spike, Karasuno's net was completely open. There was no one there to block it. In Karasuno's back row, Nishinoya, Yamaguchi, and Asahi tensed up. They saw Kamiya's movements, lowering their stances, eyes locked onto him, ready to react at any moment. But then Akira, who had just landed from his last dive, jumped at again. It was like he had springs in his legs. There was no hesitation, no delay. Kamiya had been aiming for the open space behind Karasuno's blockers, but suddenly, as he swung his arm down, a pair of hands appeared right in front of him. Bang! The timing was perfect. Kamiya's powerful spike was blocked straight down. The ball slammed into the court. Chirp! The referee blew the whistle. Karasuno scored. What just happened? The crowd erupted in an uproar. A second jump block. And in such a short time. That number 7 from Karasuno is an absolute monster. I thought for sure Karasuno would lose the point. But then, so many things happened in a flash. It was like a roller coaster. Not only did he predict the spike, he reacted instantly. His intuition is terrifying. It's not just intuition. His physical abilities are insane. Did you see how fast he jumped again after landing? He actually caught up with Josenji's attacker, who had already jumped first. The entire audience buzzed with excitement. On the court, it wasn't just Josenji's players who were stunned. Even Karasuno's own members were staring at Akira in disbelief. Are you even human? Kageyama finally spoke up. He had been the one jumping alongside Akira for the block, so he had seen it up close. The hanging ball that Kamiya had used earlier, Kageyama had seen it, but he hadn't reacted in time. For someone with Kageyama's reflexes, that was saying something. He had seen the play unfold, his brain had registered what was happening, but his body simply hadn't kept up. But Akira? Not only had he recognized the move immediately, his body had responded just as fast. And judging by the speed of his second jump, he had anticipated Kamiya's follow-up attack the moment he saved the ball. He had read the entire play beforehand. That was insane. From the other side of the net, Terushima Yuichi's voice rang out, full of excitement. Seiji Okugaku turned around with a scowl. Terushima, if you even think about trying that during the game, I swear hey, I wouldn't dare, Seiji-senpai. Terushima grinned sheepishly, but the gleam in his eyes betrayed his excitement. Taking a deep breath, Okugaku composed himself. He turned to Kamiya. What did it feel like? Kamiya frowned. It's tough. That no 7s block is way too high. I knew it would be difficult to score, so I used the hanging ball as a trick. Kamiya exhaled. But I didn't expect. Even that wasn't enough. He reacted too fast. His thinking is so sharp. Okugaku's heart sank, but he didn't let it show. Instead, he turned to his teammates. Stay calm. That was just 1 point. He turned back toward the other side of the net. We'll get it back soon. Yeah, his teammates responded in unison. The whistle blew. The game continued. I didn't expect this match to be so intense right from the start. The crowd was buzzing with excitement after Akira's incredible play. As the match progressed, Josenji began to settle into their usual rhythm. Their play style was all about adaptability and unpredictability, and it showed. Particularly, the duo of Kamiya and Okugaku stood out. Their coordination kept Karasuno on edge, and their strategic plays began to show results. Their teammates, originally shaken by Karasuno's aggressive start, also found their footing again. But in doing so, they exposed a major weakness. A steady team like theirs, when faced with an opponent much stronger than them, had little to no chance at all. Chapter 56, Match 3. Some teams, when facing stronger opponents, rely on unorthodox strategies and unpredictable tactics to catch their rivals off guard and secure a surprise victory. If Akira hadn't joined Karasuno, then Karasuno, who relied on Hinata and Kageyama's freak quick attack, would have been one such team. But now, Josenji plays in an entirely different style. They rely on skill. Such a team, when facing weaker opponents, will win consistently. Few teams can overturn them because their style is grounded and steady. But when their opponent is stronger than them, that very steadiness becomes a weakness. Because steadiness means minimal fluctuations in performance. And when their peak performance still falls below their opponent's strength, failure is inevitable. Right now, Josenji is being completely dominated by Karasuno. How could this be? Aren't the players in good form today? This doesn't make sense. What's happening? Is Karasuno really that strong? Listening to the murmurs of the audience around them, Shimada and his friends exchanged knowing smiles. You three shouldn't get too happy just yet. Don't assume Jozenji will lose so easily. At that moment, a Jozenji supporter sitting nearby spoke up. Although his face looked a little pale, he still turned toward Shimada and his friends with determination. Just wait. Jozenji still has plenty of fight left. But regardless of how Jozenji's fans felt, the match continued moving in the worst possible direction for them. With Akira rotating to the back row, Karasuno unleashed Hinata and Kageyama's Freak Key CK attack combined with Hinata's decoy strategy. While teams can adjust to Hinata's quick attack, that takes time. And so far, the only person who has successfully stopped that quick attack on the first try is Akira. But before Jozenji's blockers could even react, Hinata rotated to the back row. And Akira Karasuno's other ace attacker rotated back to the front. Now, two completely different offensive styles alternated. One a guerrilla-like strategy focused on avoiding the blockers and scoring from unexpected angles. The other a direct, overwhelming attack, striking with the sheer force of raw power. No matter how strong a blocker is, if they stand in Akira's way, he will break through. Jozenji's players were being subjected to both forms of attack in turns. Just as they adjusted to one, the other would strike. With that relentless pressure, the score continued to widen, and Jozenji's players began to lose their mental edge. Tweet. The referee's whistle echoed as CG Okutake glanced at the scoreboard. We're at match point already. He clenched his teeth, his palms damp with sweat. Staring across the net, he felt a moment of despair. Hey! CG-senpai! What are you spacing out for? A hand landed on his shoulder, snapping him out of his thoughts. He turned to see Terushima Yuji standing beside him, grinning confidently. Didn't we say it? This year, we'll defeat Shirei Darizawa and go to nationals. We can't fall here. So don't you dare give up now. TCH. Who said I was giving up? CG shoved Terushima's hand away, annoyed. The next ball is coming to you. Don't mess it up. Haha. No problem. As Terushima turned away, CG found himself momentarily dazed. Maybe these second years have the right idea. Playing freely, doing whatever feels right, making it impossible for the opponent to predict. Tweet. A sharp whistle interrupted his thoughts. No matter what, the match must go on. But against Karasuno's relentless offense, Jozenji's defense struggled to hold up. The first set ended in a landslide. Meanwhile, at another court nearby, Shirei Darizawa! Shirei Darizawa! Deafening cheers filled the air. And on the scoreboard, Shirei Darizawa 25-16 Wakutani Minami. Shirei Darizawa had swiftly taken the first set. We expected this, but seeing it Happen still stings, Nakajima muttered bitterly from Wakutani Minami's bench. For the next set, we fight back. We're not just going to roll over. Even if we lose, we won't make it easy for them. Yet. Is this really our semi-final opponent? This is boring. In the stands, an older man yawned as he watched the match. A younger spectator beside him nodded in agreement. Yeah, and Wakutani Minami is supposed to be one of the strongest schools in the prefecture. Making the top 4 isn't easy. But against Shirei Darizawa, they don't stand a chance. Scratching his head, the older man glanced at the Shirei Darizawa players. I guess that just shows how strong Shirei Darizawa is. They even made the top 8 in nationals last year. Yeah. Hopefully, Aoba Josai can last a little longer against them this year. Huh. Everyone turned to him, their expressions filled with disbelief. Dude, you're way behind the times. Aoba Josai didn't even make it out of the group stage this year. The older man's face is in shock. What? Other than Shirei Darizawa, who could possibly beat Aoba Josai? They always make the finals. In their group, who could knock Aoba Josai out? Was it Datek? The younger fan sighed, exasperated. Datek got eliminated BEF or Aobajosai. Uncle, have you even been watching the tournament? Chapter 57, Match 4. Seeing the incredulous expressions of the people around him, the older man scratched his head in embarrassment. Defeated Datek and Aobajosai, but the team from previous years. Huh? Previous years? Which team? The team that used to make it to the national competitions a lot? Back then, even Shirei Darizawa wasn't a match for them. What? Hearing this, the older man widened his eyes. Isn't that team long gone? I heard they haven't even been able to qualify in recent years. A team that fell that far can defeat Aobajosai? Are you sure you remember correctly? The younger man thought for a moment. This year's Karasuno is really strong. I heard they have some powerful first years. Maybe they can at least put up a fight against Shirei Darizawa. As soon as he said this, the surrounding crowd erupted in laughter and disbelief. How is that possible? Just a few first years? Challenging a powerhouse like Shirei Darizawa? Yeah, they're not even on the level of Aobajosai. Forget Aobajosai. If they faced Shirei Darizawa, their score would be as bad as Kyutani Minami's. I'll eat a volleyball if they manage to win. A team relying on rookies wants to challenge the strongest in the prefecture? That's wishful thinking. Let's see if they even make it to the final first. I heard their next match is against Josenji. That won't be easy. Maybe they won't even get the chance to face Shirei Darizawa. Ha ha ha. Seeing the reactions of the people around him, the younger man wiped a cold sweat from his forehead. I didn't say they could win against Shirei Darizawa. Just that if they beat Aobajosai, they might be a bit stronger this year. But the noise of the crowd drowned him out. Tweet. The intermission ended, and the second set began. But no matter how many sets they played, Josenji lacked raw power. For a team like theirs, their weaknesses were undeniable. Watching the score, CG Okyutake felt an uneasy creeping in. He was fully aware of the team's shortcomings. But his pride made him reluctant to acknowledge them. For 3 years, he had been part of Josenji's volleyball team. Steady and solid. That had always been their mantra. The words of the seniors before him still rang in his mind, this is Josenji's style. We are the embodiment of stability. Don't bother with unnecessary tricks. We are Josenji. Do we really have to be so rigid? Okyutake turned his gaze to Terushima Yuiji's side profile, then glanced at Izaka, Muhata and the others on the court. On the bench, Nikki and Higashiyama watched the game intensely. After we graduate, the team will belong to them. Will they continue playing the way we do? Although he didn't want to admit it, he knew the answer. They wouldn't. No matter what he said, they wouldn't. Instead of forcing this style on them and losing anyway, we might as well change things up. At least this way, we still have a fighting chance. He glanced at the scoreboard and exhaled sharply. Not many points left. Terushima, for the rest of the match, you and the others can play freely. Huh? What? The entire team turned to him in shock. Really? Senpai. Terushima's eyes widened in disbelief. Since joining the team, the seniors had always preached control and steadiness. Playing freely was unheard of. Terushima had never liked that style. It didn't suit him. And it wasn't just him, his fellow second years felt the same way. But for the sake of the team, they had played along. Even when they won, Terushima never felt truly satisfied. But today, in a game they were on the verge of losing, their strict captain was telling them to play freely. Stop wasting time and focus on the game. Don't make me regret this. Yes. The second years lit up with excitement. Okyutake felt a bittersweet sensation in his chest. Looking back, He had seen glimpses of their individual talents in previous matches. But back then, he thought maintaining the team's legacy was more important. Sacrificing personal playstyles for the sake of team strategy had always seemed justified. But now, he wasn't so sure. If there's no joy in this, how long will obedience last? He muttered to himself, feeling a weight in his heart. I really haven't been a good captain. No, you already are. Kamika Yuto had appeared beside him, speaking softly. It's incredible that you managed to lead the team and balance different play styles. They understand that, too. Otherwise, with Terushima's personality, do you think he'd respect you this much? Okutake stared at him in shock. Before he could respond, Kamika grinned. Don't just stand there. The opponent is about to serve. Next point we score. Chapter 58, Match, complete. After CG Okutake released his restraints on them, Jozenji seemed to immediately change its style. It was like a middle-aged man who had been stable and composed suddenly turning into a carefree child. Terushima and the others began executing bizarre and unpredictable plays that caught everyone off guard. Under this sudden change, Karasuno was momentarily thrown into chaos. But that only lasted for so long. At this point, Jozenji had already fallen into a considerable point deficit. Even if they managed to pull off some surprising moves, it only earned them a few extra points. It wasn't enough to change the outcome. If CG Okutake had made this decision earlier in the match, Jozenji might have had a better chance. But now, with Karasuno close to match point, there was no saving Jozenji from their inevitable defeat. Since we can't win the game, then let's at least have fun. Every play became about their own enjoyment. Every ball, a chance to express themselves freely. Tweet. The sharp sound of the whistle echoed. The players of Jozenji, drenched in sweat, turned their eyes to the scoreboard. Karasuno 25:19 Jozenji. Damn. I can't accept this. It was just getting fun. Under the bright lights overhead, Terushima's face showed his frustration. He looked across the net at the players in black and orange, struggling to accept the loss. Such an interesting opponent. And it's already over. CG Okutake sighed as he stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Terushima's shoulder. Once we leave, this court is yours. What? Terushima turned to CG in disbelief. CG-senpai. Didn't you say we should a structured and disciplined play style doesn't suit you? CG cut him off, glancing around at his teammates, their gazes locked on him, waiting for his words. Only now do I truly understand. The best style of play is the one that fits you. I hope that in future games, you don't just have fun. I hope you take Jozenji to a whole new level. He paused for a moment before continuing, if you can't defeat an opponent today, then beat them next time. Make sure you shine at Spring High. Yes, senpai. But, why? Up in the stands, a young Jozenji supporter clenched his fists, his expression filled with disbelief. Jozenji, wasn't it supposed to be the strongest? Even if they lost, it should have been to a powerhouse like Shiratorizawa. He muttered to himself, too caught up in his emotions to notice Takigawa and his friends walking past him. Hey, Shimada, what's with that guy? Why does he look even more devastated than the players? How should I know? Maybe he has friends on Jozenji's team. Are we still going to watch Shiratorizawa's match? After the game, Hineda's eyes sparkled with excitement. I really want to see a team that's strong play. Sugawara chuckled at Hineda's enthusiasm. With Shiratorizawa's level, their match has probably ended by now. If we rush over, the venue might already be empty. Seeing Hineda's disappointment, Daichi patted his shoulder reassuringly. We're going to face them this afternoon anyway. Whether we watch now or later, it won't change anything. Let's take a break first. Okay. Meanwhile, at Shiratorizawa's side, a similar discussion was taking place. Let's go watch Karasuno's match. As the players stepped off the court, their coach, Tanji Washijo, suddenly spoke. Huh. Everyone from Shiratorizawa turned to him in shock. Wait, what? Did Coach Washijo just suggest watching another team's match? Has he caught a fever? This is the finals. This is serious. Maybe we should take him to the hospital before it affects the afternoon match. Hearing their exaggerated reactions, Washijo's face darkened. You brats. Do you want extra training later? Ahem. Just then, Coach Sato approached with a report. Coach Washijo, I just received word from the other venue. Karasuno's match is already over. They defeated Josenji 2-0. Humph. Washijo nodded, his expression unreadable. Expected. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Watching his retreating NG figure, Gashiki blinked in disbelief. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Coach Washijo actually cares about Karasuno's team. And he said it was expected that they'd win. Just who are Karasuno? He flailed his arms in exaggerated gestures, looking at his teammates for answers. But they could only exchange confused glances, none of them knowing how to respond. Well, I know a little. The voice that spoke was deep and composed. All heads turned toward the center of the team. Ushijima Wakatoshi had spoken. Chapter 59, Chapter 59, to the finals what? You actually know the inside information. Hearing his words, not only Tendo Satora but also several other teammates looked over in amazement at the same time. Do you know why Washijo-sensei did this? Ushijima-senpai. After hesitating for a moment, Shirabu Kenjiro finally asked. Ushijima Wakatoshi nodded and continued. It is said that there was a junior high school student who was highly regarded by Washijo-sensei. But after receiving an invitation from Shiratorizawa, he refused. What? He rejected Shiratorizawa's invitation. Shirabu's voice was filled with shock. It was difficult for him to comprehend this. Who would actually refuse an invitation from a powerhouse like Shiratorizawa? Not only that, Ushijima continued. After he refused Shiratorizawa the first time, Washijo-sensei personally went to see him again. But he still refused. Ha ha ha. Tendo suddenly burst into laughter. I can't believe old man Washijo Italy got turned down like that. Shirabu, however, was still in disbelief and murmured, so many players dream of entering Shiratorizawa, yet this guy turned it down twice. Why? Why would anyone reject an invitation from Shiratorizawa and Washijo-sensei? Wait a minute. Tendo suddenly exclaimed. Sensei has been showing so much interest in Karasuno, could it be? Everyone seemed to realize something at the same time and turned to look at Ushijima. That's right. Ushijima nodded in confirmation. He went to Karasuno. It seems that this has become something of a grudge for Washijo-sensei. I didn't think we'd meet him this year, but Karasuno made it to the finals. A player personally invited by Washijo-sensei. At this moment, Gashiki Tsutomu muttered softly, that guy. Who? Ah, Gashiki, do you know him? Shirabu immediately turned to him, his curiosity growing even more. He's the captain of that junior high team that won the championship. A true powerhouse. A top-tier ace. I heard that his junior high team, despite being relatively unknown, won the championship solely because of him. If it's someone like that, it makes sense that Washijo-sensei would have taken an interest in him. Oh. Ushijima turned his attention to Gashiki. Did you play against him in junior high? Nope. Hearing the interest from his teammates, Gashiki suddenly became flustered, his usual confidence slightly shaken. but I definitely won't lose to him. Tendo smirked. What? I thought you knew how strong he was. Goshiki huffed in annoyance. Just compare him to me. He's definitely strong. If we're comparing him to you, then he must not be much of a threat to us. With that, the team started walking toward the exit of the stadium. Hey. What do you mean, not a threat? So excited. I'm so excited. This afternoon, we're going to face the king of Miyagi Prefecture, Shirei Darizawa. I can't believe we get to play against such a legendary team. Inside the lounge, Daichi and Sugawara drank their sports drinks as they watched Hinata pacing around the room restlessly. How long has this guy been like this? Daichi sighed. He's been pacing ever since lunch, Tsukishima muttered, shaking his head. Haha. Some people just have boundless energy, Akira commented. But. He turned to Hinata with a more serious expression. The final is a best-of-5 match. If you waste all your energy before the game and get exhausted, you'll regret it. Hinata. Huh. Right. Right. Hearing that, Hinata quickly sat down on one of the benches, though his body was still fidgeting with excitement. This guy. Seeing his behavior, everyone in the room let out a collective sigh. Well, excitement is better than nervousness. Karasuno. After looking forward to TS match for so long, it's finally happening. As the match approached, more and more spectators gathered outside the stadium. However, among today's crowd, several special spectators stood out. Man, I haven't seen a high school match in ages. Outside the Sendai City Gymnasium, a group of 3 men arrived, one of whom spoke with a familiar tone. His 2 companions looked at him with exasperation. You just don't know how to sit still, huh, Musashi? We finally got some time off, and you dragged us here to watch a bunch of kids play volleyball. Mitsuda Takesa laughed and patted his teammates on the shoulders. Haha. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. There are some real beasts playing in this match. Players even I would keep an eye on. Chapter 60, Chapter 60 What? The 2 teammates beside him, one tall and one short, exchanged glances before suddenly laughing. A high school player that even you think is worth watching. I don't mean you, Musashi. Your standards must be slipping. Faced with his teammates' teasing, Mitsuda Takesa just shook his head, unfazed. Humph. You've all heard of Ushijima, right? Of course we have. He's been featured in monthly volleyball magazine. Yeah, I've seen him play too, another teammate added. His strength is incredible. But with his skill level, going up against regular high school teams should be a total mismatch. No, Mitsuda Takesa said with a knowing smile. Among their opponents today, there's someone not too far behind Ushiwaka. His teammates looked skeptical. That's exactly why I brought you here. Kunimura, you might learn a thing or two about being an ace. Kunimura laughed. A high school player worth learning from? Come on, Musashi, you must be joking. You two remember the exhibition match I played at Miyagi Arena, right? Of course, one of them scoffed. You had the luck of a lifetime. Yeah, getting to play against your idol, Eri-san. So jealous. The shorter teammate chuckled. Ever since that match, Kunimura's been making excuses to visit Miyagi Arena, hoping for another chance to play Eri-san. Too bad he never showed up again, the taller one grumbled. Mitsuda Takesa simply smiled. Well, hate to break it to you, but that high school player beat Eri-san. What? What? Kunimura stammered. You're not serious. I was on his team, Mitsuda Takesa confirmed. Saw it with my own eyes. His teammates looked at each other, processing the shocking revelation before quickly catching up with Mitsuda Takesa. Ari-san lost to a high SCHOler. Wait, was it a team loss, or was he actually outplayed one-on-one? It was a direct matchup, Mitsuda Takesa said with a grin. Of course, Ari-san wasn't at his best that day, but still, it was impressive. Kunimura clenched his fists in excitement. Even against an off-form Ari-san, that's still insane. Mitsuda Takesa then casually added, "Oh, and I heard Ari-san's coming to watch this match too." What? Kunimura practically exploded with excitement. "Musashi, you're the best teammate ever. I love you." "Ugh, get off me." Mitsuda Takesa groaned, trying to shove him away. The shorter teammate wiped imaginary sweat from his forehead. Wow. This guy was acting so indifferent earlier, and now look at him. This is classic Kunimura, the taller one chuckled. The atmosphere in the gym felt entirely different from the morning matches. Blue barriers had been set up, separating the courts. Camera crews moved back and forth, adjusting their equipment. There were also significantly more staff members bustling around. "It feels different," Daiichi noted as he looked around. "It's the finals," Hinata said, practically vibrating with excitement. Kageyama sighed. "You've been acting like this since lunch. If you make mistakes in the game because you're too hyped up, I'm not letting you off easy." Ignoring them, Akira turned toward the other side of the court. Shiraiteriza was here. At his words, the Karasuno team instinctively turned to look. The gym doors swung open, and the Shiraiterizawa team stepped inside. Leading them was the strongest ace in Miyagi Prefecture, Ushijima Wakatoshi. But despite their composed exteriors, the Shiraiterizawa players were still unsettled by what had transpired earlier that day. They could still hear Washijo Sensei's words echoing in their minds from their pre-game meeting. Crush them. Defeat Karasuno so completely that they understand the difference between weak and strong. Washijo Sensei glared at them fiercely. A strong team is a strong team. A weak team is a weak team. Even if the weak improve, they will never stand at the same level as the strong. The room had fallen into tense silence. Then, Washijo Sensei stormed out, leaving the players alone. After a long pause, Tendo let out a sigh of relief. Phew. That was intense. He wiped imaginary sweat from his forehead. Karasuno's mystery player must have really pissed off the old man. Which only means one thing, Shirabu said thoughtfully. Whoever they are, they're strong. Because Washijo Sensei wouldn't waste his time on someone weak. First bonus chapter, 350 Power Stones. Second bonus chapter -800 Power Stones. Check out other novels Marvel. I'm in Westview Town. Naruto, I'm Ninetales and my host is Kushina. Chapter 61, Chapter 61, Finals. On the vast volleyball court, the eyes of both teams met. Most of Karasuno's players had their eyes fixed on Ushijima Wakatoshi. After all, as a well-known ace, he was a household name in Miyagi Prefecture. Every high school volleyball player aspired to reach his level. However, most of Shiraiterizawa's players were focused on Akira. Among Karasuno's newcomers, Kageyama Tobio from Kitagawa Daiki was already famous. Everyone knew about him. Hinata was far too short to fit Coach Washijo's strict selection criteria. Tsukishima, despite being a solid blocker, lacked the presence of an ace and always carried an air of disinterest. That left only one possibility. Is that him? Shirabu Kenjiro's eyes narrowed as he studied Akira. He looks ordinary. From the moment he stepped onto the court, Akira had a casual smile on his face. He showed no signs of intimidation, no pressure, no tension, just ease. Is this really the super ace that Coach Washijo values so highly? Aces should be like Ushijima, strong and imposing. But why is he still joking around with his teammates? He doesn't look like an ace at all. Akira, however, paid no attention to their scrutiny. What Shiraiterizawa thought of him didn't matter. Their only job was to lose. "Hey," Sugawara Satoshi whispered. "I always knew Shirei Terizawa was strong, but they have such an intense presence. Yeah, we really don't know much about their other players." Just standing there, Shirei Terizawa's aura was overwhelming. It was a confidence built from absolute dominance. Initially, everyone assumed that stopping Shirei Terizawa meant stopping Ushijima. But now, things looked much more complicated. A cold and precise setter, a peculiar outside hitter, a cocky first year opposite. It was clear that Shirei Terizawa wasn't just a Bout Ushijima. "So, this is Miyagi's strongest team," Daiichi murmured. Since the match was being televised, the warm-up time was shorter than usual. With the referee's whistle, both teams split off to begin their warm-ups. More and more spectators filled the stands, but the contrast between the two sides was stark. On Shirei Terizawa's side, a sea of students in uniform, cheerleaders, and massive banners filled the area. They even brought out enormous taiko drums. Karasuno's side, by comparison, was more modest. The audience consisted mostly of older alumni, with fewer students wearing Karasuno uniforms. "Oh! Isn't that Mitsuda Musashi? He's here to watch the match. Wait, look next to him. That's Naoto Kunimura, Shinkai's ace, and Yoshino Heiji, their libero. No way. I didn't think I'd see such high-profile players today. Not just them. I heard that Eri-senpai is here too." "What? Eri-senpai is here? Where?" A few people immediately stood up to scan the crowd. "Idiot. A player of Eri-senpai's status wouldn't sit with regular spectators. He's probably in the commentator's box. Damn. I wanted to ask him for an autograph. Forget Eri. I'd rather get Akira's autograph after the match." A nearby spectator chuckled. "That guy went head to head with Eri and didn't lose. His potential is limitless." Huh. A few spectators exchanged confused glances. "You don't know? If you had Eri's high school autograph right now, that'd be pretty valuable, right? More than valuable. That would be." One person stopped mid-sentence, realizing something. The older spectators exchanged silent glances before one cleared his throat. "Ahem. My son's been a huge fan of Akira since watching him play. I promised I'd get his autograph after the match. Surely you won't compete with the child." "Same here. My girlfriend's been obsessed with him ever since his TV interview. For the sake of my relationship, I have to get that autograph." "Me too. My little brother oi. You guys. Fair competition. Don't be so shameless." The original spectator who wanted an autograph looked devastated. "I was so stupid," he groaned. "Why did I say anything? I should have just asked after the match." As the teams continued warming up, the TV crew finished setting up the commentary booth. On a high platform, the championship trophy and medals gleamed under the arena lights. The ultimate prize awaited the victor. Tweet. With the referee's whistle, the players returned to their sides of the court. The National High School Sports Tournament, Miyagi Prefecture Representative Playoffs Men's Final. The match was about to begin. I'll be uploading the next chapters, just a bit busy these days. Chapter 62, Match 1. The announcer's voice echoed throughout the massive stadium, cutting through the noise of the crowd and settling over the two teams lined up on the court. Miyagi Prefectural Karasuno High School vs Shirei Terizawa Academy. The match is about to begin. As the starters from both teams took their positions, the announcer's voice carried on. For today's finals, we have two special guests in attendance. They are member of the Miyagi Prefecture Volleyball Development Committee, Mr. Ere. The moment the words fell, from the commentator's bench next to the court, a middle-aged man in a formal suit stood up. He had a sharp demeanor, a cold expression, and a short beard. He waved briefly to the audience and the players before sitting back down. His presence was met with a wave of cheers from the crowd. "Ere! I can't believe Mr. Ere is here. This is huge. This is amazing. I started playing volleyball because of him." Are's popularity in the volleyball community of Miyagi Prefecture was undeniable. Even Shirei Dorizawa's coach, Tanji Washijo, momentarily turned his attention toward the commentator's area. "Mr. Ere. I never thought I'd see him in person." Takeda Itatsu, Karasuno's faculty advisor, was visibly excited, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. But the announcer did not linger on the moment. As the cheers settled, he continued. "Our second guest is the vice chairman of the Miyagi Prefecture Volleyball Development Committee, Mr. Yuta Takano." Sitting next to Ere, a slightly stockier middle-aged man stood up and waved, offering a reserved smile before returning to his seat. "What? Mr. Takano too? He actually came." Some spectators who were less familiar with the scene voiced their curiosity. "I didn't expect two committee members to show up. What's so special about this match? I thought this was just a high GH school final, but it's clearly a bigger deal than I realized. My friend didn't come today, he's definitely regretting it now." Yuta Takano had once been a volleyball player himself, but at a young age, he realized his limitations and shifted his focus to developing the sport in Miyagi Prefecture. His contributions to the volleyball scene were invaluable. "We'd like to thank both committee members for gracing us with their presence and adding prestige to this competition. They will also be presenting THE awards after the match, handing out the championship trophy and medals to the winners." With all announcements complete, the referee blew the whistle. The match had begun. Shirei Dorizawa won the coin toss and chose the side, leaving Karasuno with the first serve. "Give them a strong serve, Hinata. Got it?" Despite the encouragement, Hinata's serve was still light, an easy pickup for Shirei Dorizawa's libero, Taiki Kawanishi. "Ushijima senpai." Shirabu Kenjiro instinctively set the ball towards the powerhouse ace, Wakatoshi Ushijima. Just as Karasuno expected. Like Karasuno's own strategy, Shirei Dorizawa's first point was usually given to their ace. The sheer power of Ushijima's spike could set the tone for the entire match, boosting his team's morale and shaking his opponents. Hearing Shirabu's call, Ushijima's expression sharpened as he entered his attacking stance. Eyes locked onto the ball, he leapt into the air. Seeing the approach, Akira and the front row blockers immediately positioned themselves. "Watch his angle," Akira called. Ushijima's signature left-handed spike came from an unusual angle. 4 players facing him for the first time, it was almost impossible to react in time. But thanks to Akira's detailed breakdown during last night's meeting and his last-second reminder, neither Tsukishima Kei nor Kageyama Tobio were caught off guard. Reading the approach, all 3 blockers jumped in unison. Bam! The impact rattled through Akira's arms as the ball made contact with his block. Despite the sheer force behind Ushijima's spike, the ball was successfully stopped and sent straight back onto Shirei Dorizawa's court. The whistle blew. Point, Karasuno. What? He actually blocked Ushijima senpai's spike. Shirei Dorizawa's players were visibly shocked. As teammates, they were all well aware of the sheer power behind Ushijima's attacks. Even if he wasn't at his absolute best yet, his spikes weren't something just anyone could block. He actually stopped Ushijima's spike. Who the hell is that guy? I must be dreaming. No one in the prefecture has ever blocked Ushijima senpai's first spike before. A collective gasp echoed through the Shirei Dorizawa audience. The impact of what they just witnessed was enormous. To the students of Shirei Dorizawa, Ushijima was an unstoppable force. Even at the national level, few players could challenge him head-on. While their losses in previous tournaments had been team-related, Ushijima's ability as an ace had never been questioned. And yet, today, in the very first rally of the match, someone had blocked his spike cleanly. What did that mean? It meant the opponent didn't even need time to adjust to Ushijima's attacks. They already understood how to counter him. Could it have been a fluke? Or was it sheer skill? As the ball rolled to a stop behind him, Ushijima turned his head, eyes lingering on Akira. He could have adjusted his spike's angle to avoid the block, aiming for a sharper cross-court shot. However, his initial goal had been to shatter the opponent's morale with his first attack. But instead, the opposite had happened. His spike had been read and countered. Looking into Akira's eyes, which held a slight smirk, Ushijima said nothing. He simply turned back toward his team. The match continued. I'll upload remaining chapters tomorrow. Chapter 63, Match 2, Hinata serves again. This time, Shirabu Kenjiro once again sets the ball to Ushijima Wakatoshi for the spike. He is the kind of setter who remains steadfast in his decisions and does not waver just because Ushijima's previous attack was blocked. Besides, compared to the rare instance of being stopped, Ushijima has scored far too many times. The trust in their ace is deeply ingrained, it cannot be broken so easily. After carefully observing his movements, Akira and the two blockers in the front row jump simultaneously. Block. Cross shot. Roughly predicting Ushijima's attacking angle, Akira shouts out a warning. At the same time, Nishinoya, in the back row, quickly slides into position and to defend against the straight shot. Bang. At this moment, Ushijima is like a relentless tank, charging forward. The ball he spikes leaves his hand like a cannonball, cutting through the air with intense velocity. However, in the last moment of his swing, Ushijima subtly twists his wrist and redirects the attack, avoiding the triple block. Straight shot. Bang. Nishinoya's eyes widen. This ball is too fast. Even with Akira's prior warning and practice, receiving it is nearly impossible. The ball slams against Nishinoya's outstretched arms, but the sheer force sends it flying out of bounds. Whistle. Shiratorizawa scores. This is exactly what makes Ushijima Wakatoshi so formidable. In crucial moments, he can alter his spike direction at will. However, Akira had anticipated this possibility. If Ushijima were the type to mindlessly charge at a barrier he couldn't break through, he wouldn't be considered one of the nation's top aces. Adjusting and attacking through gaps in the defense is a skill only the BST possess, and Ushijima undoubtedly has it. Wow! Ushiwaka is still as strong as ever. In the audience, Kuni Imura Naoto watches the match with bright eyes. The last time I saw him play, I thought he was already a beast. But now, he's even better than before. Then, he turns to Mitsuda, sitting beside him. Hey! That kid you were talking about, Akira, is he really that strong? He did block Ushiwaka earlier, but that just means he's physically gifted. Mitsuda Takeshi simply shakes his head. Kunimura, yo, you're too impatient. Just watch. He hasn't even attacked yet. Oh. Alright, I'll wait and see then. That's alright. From the back row, Nishinoya clenches his fists, raising his voice with determination. Next time. The next one, I'll definitely receive it. It seems like, last night's training really paid off. A small grin tugs at the corner of Akira's lips. If they had come into this match without preparation, Nishinoya would have needed at least 10 attempts to adjust to Ushijima's spikes. But thanks to their training session the night before, Nishinoya is adapting much faster. Whistle. The match continues. After regaining a point through Ushijima's spike, Shiratorizawa's momentum is steadily returning. The crowd outside the court is growing more energetic by the second. See? I told you. Ushiwaka senpai is unbeatable. That block earlier must have been pure luck. There are probably only a handful of high school players in Miyagi Prefecture who can stop Ushijima's spikes. Maybe less than 50. The whistle blows again. Shiratorizawa's middle blocker, Kawanishi Taiki, steps up to serve. His unpredictable float serve is aimed toward the Karasuno back row. But Nishinoya is already in position. Smack. He receives it cleanly and passes the ball straight to Kageyama. With quick precision, Kageyama leaps into action, setting the ball high into the air. The trajectory is clear, it's heading toward Akira. Here it comes. In the audience, Mitsuda and others lean forward in their seats. How will Akira attack? Will he avoid the block? Everyone who has seen him play knows that he's fully capable of maneuvering around blockers with ease. Or will he follow Ushijima's example and challenge them head-on? Moments ago, Ushijima's spike had been stopped by a triple block. Will that affect Akira's decision? Will he prioritize scoring by avoiding the block, or will he choose to smash through it? Whoosh! He takes a running start and leaps. He's coming. Straight shot. He's taking the risky route. Shiratorizawa's three blockers jump at the same time. Will he change direction? This is the question on everyone's minds. But in the midst of all the anticipation, Akira provides his answer. With his actions. Ah, this kid is too reckless. In the stands, Kunimura Naoto shakes his head. Didn't he see what just happened to Ushiwaka? The triple block is too strong. If I were him, boom. The impact is like an explosion. For a split second, everything seems to freeze. Every nerve in the stadium is on edge, hearts pounding, blood rushing. Akira did not dodge. Just like Ushijima, he chooses to attack head-on. But unlike before, Shiratorizawa's blockers look utterly powerless against him. His spike bulldozes through their hands and slams against the court floor behind them. The ball ricochets high into the air, like a missile rebounding from impact. Whoosh! On the Karasuno bench, Coach Yokai abruptly rises to his feet, fists clenched, his lips trembling in disbelief. Even the composed Ere and Takano exchange glances, the shock evident on their faces. Neither says a word, but the intensity in their eyes speaks volumes. If it were you, what would you do? In the audience, Mitsuda turns to Kunimura Naoto with a knowing smile. Because after witnessing that spike, there's only one possible answer. Chapter 64, Match 3. Mitsuda on the side smirked and glanced at his teammates. I. Kunimura Naoto's face turned red, but he couldn't form a response. I would choose to do the same as him. Facing C. Hollenge's head-on is what young players do. Ha ha ha. You really are something else. Ushijima-senpai. Lost. This was the overwhelming thought running through the minds of the Shiratorizawa players. They stood in disbelief, staring at the court. The unstoppable Ushijima-senpai, he can fail too. It was a hard truth to accept. They were used to seeing their own spikes get blocked, but watching an opponent's spike completely bypass their defense was something different. A lucky shot. Maybe. But psychological damage had already been done. On the court, the three blockers who had failed to stop the attack picked themselves up and looked across the net, expecting to see their opponent reveling in his success. Instead, Akira simply turned and walked back to his team as if nothing had happened. Arrogant ace. Tendo Satoru narrowed his eyes. I have to stop him. Tweet. While Shiratorizawa was still processing what had happened, the referee blew the whistle. Shiratorizawa had called a timeout. Ushijima and the others looked to the sideline in shock, watching as Coach Washijo stood there, his expression calm yet firm. Without a word, they followed his instruction and stepped off the court. Shiratorizawa was forced to call a timeout this early in the game. Kunimura Naoto, now fully recovered from his previous embarrassment, looked at the scoreboard in surprise. They're not even at 8 points yet. They could have waited for the technical timeout. Ha! Mitsuda shook his head. If they have waited until 8 points, Shiratorizawa would be in deep trouble. It would be too late. Is that guy really that strong? Naoto asked incredulously. Even with such a powerful spike, I don't think he can take down Shiratorizawa within 8 points. These guys have been through so many battles, they should be able to handle this. Nope. Mitsuda's expression turned serious as he stared at the court. This guy isn't just a strong spiker. The scariest thing about him is that he has no weaknesses. And he only gets stronger as the match progresses. If Shiratorizawa hadn't realized the danger early on and decided to drag out the match, they would have regretted it. I played against him twice, so I know. But what confuses me is how Coach Washijo realized this too. Was it just a coincidence? Or did he actually see the threat? I'm sure you all saw what that number 7 is capable of, Washijo said, his sharp gaze fixed on the players in front of him. But what he's shown so far is only the tip of the iceberg. So don't fixate on him alone. The rest of Karasuno is where your openings are. I want this match finished in 3 sets. Do not give them time to adjust. Ushijima. You need to regain your form immediately. Against Karasuno, you cannot afford a slow start. Yes. Alright, that's all. But remember. As if worried they weren't taking it seriously enough, Washijo emphasized once more. And this in 3 sets. Yes. The old man sure seems to know a lot about that guy, Tendo muttered as they returned to the court. Is he really that dangerous? Ushijima, do you understand now? Ushijima didn't respond directly. Instead, he turned to Shirabu Kenjiro. Shirabu. Yes, Ushijima-senpai. From now on, say to me more frequently. His words stunned the entire team. Why yes. Shirabu finally stammered after several seconds. The timeout ended, and both teams returned to the court. The battle resumed immediately. This time, Karasuno served again. The ball sailed over the net but was easily received by Shiratorizawa's defense. Ushijima-senpai. Shirabu's set was crisp and precise, carrying an air of complete confidence. He understood what was at stake. This wasn't just a point. This was about momentum. Whichever team won this mental battle would control the rest of the match. And in moments like these, the responsibility always fell to the team's ace. A weapon like Ushijima Wakatoshi was meant to destroy the opposition. Seeing Ushiwaka's approach, Akira and his teammates anticipated a straight shot and jumped to block. But at the last moment, Ushijima twisted his wrist and sent the ball diagonally instead. Akira's eyes narrowed. That had been part of his expectation. If they could seal Ushiwaka's usual shot paths and reinforce the back row defense, eventually, Akira would completely read his attack patterns. And then, Ushiwaka wouldn't be able to escape his block. Bang! A thunderous impact echoed across the gym. But it wasn't the sound of the ball hitting the floor. Ushiwaka's spike had been received. Though Nishinoya had to dive, and though the sheer force of the ball sent him skidding, he had still dug it out. Nice one. As the ball soared toward Kageyama, Akira had already started moving. The instant the set went up, he accelerated. Like a wild beast unleashed, his raw power built up with every step. Finally, all of it transformed into one overwhelming jump. At the peak of his leap, he met the ball perfectly. Bang! Boom! The 3 Shiratorizawa blockers might as well have been non-existent. Tweet. The WH Isley blew. Karasuno had scored again. But the most shocking part? That spike hadn't just gone through the block. It had been spiked off their hands. Chapter 65, Chapter 65, Match, 4, Height. Strength. Coach Washijo clenched his fists in the dugout, his eyes gleaming with ambition. Such a perfect player. Why would he go to that kind of team? I must make him change his mind. A team relying on just one person will never last. In the audience, Mitsuda's expression was one of stunned disbelief. What a monster! He murmured, staring at the court. What is it? Kunimura Naoto asked, puzzled. That was an absurdly high spike. But it's normal for a spike to be higher than a block. A spiker gets the advantage of a run-up and step, while a blocker jumps from a standstill. No, that's not it, Mitsuda said, recalling something. The last time I played against him, he wasn't jumping this high. That was just a little over a week ago. I don't know if he improved or if he wasn't even using his full strength back then. This guy, he's impossible to predict. Kunimura Naoto swallowed hard. I'm guessing he wasn't playing at full strength. Otherwise, improving your jump that much in a week is just too much to take in. The libero. Heiji Yoshino hesitated before adding, he's a genius. Huh. Both Mitsuda and Naoto turned to look at him. You two know Ushijima Wakatoshi is left-handed, right? I've defended against left-handed spikers before. Their spikes are completely different from right-handed players. Mitsuda and Naoto immediately understood. Oh. The angle of the spike. Naoto's eyes lit up. A left-handed attacker spikes from a different position than a right-handed one. That's something blockers need to account for. Yoshino nodded. For a libero, though, it's a whole different challenge. The spin and angle of a left-handed spike are completely different. The first time you face a left-handed power spiker, it's almost impossible to receive their hits properly. When I first faced one, it took me an entire match to adjust. Then, that means. They both turned their eyes toward Nishinoya on the court. At first, even he had trouble with Ushijima's spikes. But just by the second attempt, he was already receiving them properly. Seeing Yoshino's expression of shock, Naoto tried to dismiss it. Maybe Nishinoya trained against left-handed spikes before. Yoshino glanced at him skeptically. There are barely any left-handed power spikers in Miyagi Prefecture. Who exactly would he have trained against? Maybe someone imitated a left-handed spike for him. At this, even Mitsuda looked at him like he had lost his mind. Naoto. Mitsuda sighed, patting his shoulder. You're a spiker yourself. Have some common sense. Tell me, is it even possible for a right-handed player to mimic a left-handed spike? Naoto turned red and fell silent. All right. Yoshino chuckled. I get it, Naoto. You were just trying to comfort me. But honestly, I'm not shaken by this. I've played for years. I've seen countless geniuses who make me look average. It's nothing new. But Naoto, as a professional player, please don't say dumb things like imitating left-handed spikes again. Haha. Fine. Naoto raised his hands in surrender. The game continued. Left wing. Straight shot. Block him. Bam. Shiratorizawa's defense didn't show intricate teamwork. Instead, it showcased pure individual strength. The two teams kept trading points, locked in a brutal fight. For Karasuno, this was an uphill battle. Both teams had to rotate players quickly due to the intensity of the match. After Ushijima rotated to the back row, Akira was also about to rotate out. Seeing this, Shiratorizawa finally exhaled in relief. When Akira was in the front row, only Ushijima could consistently spike past his blocks. The other attackers struggled. If Akira sealed off the straight or cross-court attack, they had no choice but to hit the ball where Karasuno's back row defense was already waiting. Ushijima could score because of his combination of raw strength and refined technique. The others weren't as versatile. If they tried to copy his technique, they'd lose too much power, making it easier for Karasuno's defense to pick up their shots. Without Akira's presence at the net, Shirei Terizawa could finally accelerate their scoring. Let's go. Take back those points. Chapter 66, Match 5, Watch out for the back row attack. Even though Akira had rotated to the back row, Shirei Terizawa still didn't let their guard down. As Ushijima's teammates, they all knew it. A super ace's back row attack could be just as lethal as a front row one. But as Hinata moved to the front row, a spark of excitement flickered in his eyes. With anticipation, he glanced at Kageyama beside Haikyuu, only to find Kageyama already looking at him. Their gazes met for a moment before they both turned away at the same time. On the other side of the net, Tendo narrowed his eyes, catching the exchange. But for now, he had been subbed out for the libero and, even if he sensed something, he couldn't do much about it. Without Akira in the front row to block, Shirei Terizawa's offense surged in intensity. However, Karasuno's attack power wasn't falling behind either. Despite Akira being in the back row, they didn't show the weakness Shirei Terizawa had anticipated. Hinata's front row attack caught Shirei Terizawa off guard right from the start. Bang! Before the blockers could react, Hinata spiked the ball straight down for a point. Even if Shirei Terizawa adjusted to his quick attack over time, it still took them a moment to adapt. But if all attention was focused on Hinata, then the other attackers would strike before Shirei Terizawa could react. On the flip side, defending against Shirei Terizawa's attacks was no easy feat for Karasuno. Without Akira in the front row, their blocking became far less effective against Shirei Terizawa's powerful offense. Stop them! Tanaka gritted his teeth in frustration. Shirei Terizawa's strength didn't lie in Ushijima alone. Though no one else on the team could match his sheer power, they were still some of the best players in all of Miyagi Prefecture. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been selected by Coach Washijo for Shirei Terizawa. A talented first-year wing spiker, Gashiki Tsutomu. A précis and efficient setter, Shirabu Kenjiro, who devoted himself to feeding Ushijima the perfect sets. A middle blocker with insane instincts, Tendo Satori. An outstanding libero, Yamagata Hayato. And solid, well-rounded players like Ohira Rayon and Kawanishi Taika. This was the reigning king of Miyagi, Shirei Terizawa. As the teams continued to trade points, rotations shifted. Soon, the eager Tendo returned to the front row, eyes locked onto Hinata and Kageyama across the net. That freak quick attack. I finally get to experience it firsthand. The whistle blew. Bang. After Akira received Ohira's serve, Karasuno's attack formation began. Hinata started running. As he neared Kageyama, he suddenly changed direction, cutting diagonally. At the same time, Asahi and Tanaka also accelerated toward their attack positions. Kageyama's toss flew up. A quick set to Hinata. Hundreds of repetitions had refined their movements into pure instinct. But at that very moment, Akira, stationed in the back row, narrowed his eyes. Tendo had already moved. It was as if he had anticipated their attack before they even set it in motion. Among three attackers, he locked onto Hinata instantly and predicted the shot. Bang! The freak quick attack was blocked. The ball bounced back to Karasuno's side, and Hinata and Kageyama stared in shock at Tendo. This quick attack had been blocked before, but even Datex blockers needed time to adjust before shutting it down. Did he predict it from watching on the sidelines? From the back row, Akira had the best vantage point. From the beginning, Tendo had exuded confidence in stopping this attack. If nothing else, this quick attack wouldn't work against him. Now, I'm in full form. Tendo's wild laughter echoed across the court. Shirei Terizawa is NT just about Ushiwaka. Shirei Terizawa resumed serving. But Akira's reception remained steady. Regular serves posed no threat to him. Once the ball was in play, Karasuno's front row spikers moved again. And Tendo, across the net, fixated on Kageyama, noticing the slight beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Who would this set go to? Kageyama Tobio, the genius setter from Kitagawa Daiki. Karasuno's attackers moved exactly as before. But this time, Tendo had already stopped their quick attack once. Normally, any setter would instinctively avoid repeating a failed play. But Kageyama did the opposite. With all three attackers rushing the net, he still set the ball to Hinata. When both teams are evenly matched, it becomes a battle of the setter versus the opposing blocker. Tendo read their movements again. But it was only similar on the surface. This time, Kageyama's toss was slightly slower. It looked the same, but in reality, it was different. And Hinata understood immediately. Back during their practice match against Nekoma, Inyoka had adapted to their quick attack. Since then, Hinata had practiced a variation. The spike speed would be slightly reduced. But in exchange, he could aim for the open gaps in the defense. He jumped. Bang. Unexpectedly, at the last moment, Tendo adjusted his arm position. He blocked Hinata's new attack route. Karasuno's attack was shut down again. Shiraiterizawa scored consecutive points. What the hell? Hinata stared at the volleyball in disbelief. Even after adjusting the attack angle, it was still blocked. There were only two outcomes for an instinct-based blocker like Tendo. Either he performed at 0% or at 120%. And now that he was fully activated, he was terrifying. Sure enough, in the next few rallies, Kageyama and Hinata were unable to break past Tendo's block even once. At this moment, Tendo's blocking felt almost godlike. He was always exactly where he needed to be. Heh. I'm on fire right now. Tendo's laughter rang out across the net. Ha 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 ha. Shiraiterizawa continued to close the point gap. And as the game progressed, Karasuno received even worse news. Ushijima had rotated to the front row. This meant Shiraiterizawa's heaviest artillery was now in prime position to attack. Though Ushijima could attack from the back row, he had to jump behind the 3-meter line. That required more stamina. Now, in the front row, his attacks would be even more devastating. But Ushijima's rotation also meant something else. Akira was about to rotate into the front row as well. Chapter 67, Match 6, with Tendo's blocking working, Shiraiterizawa scored another point. This point also meant a rotation of positions. Ace. Wakatoshi Ushijima. Back to the front row again. Seeing this, Coach Washijo on the bench relaxed slightly and smirked. Uh-oh. Now Karasuno is in trouble. In the audience, Mitsuda couldn't help but sigh. One more rotation, and Akira will be in the front row. But before that happens, how many points will Ushiwaka rack up? And Karasuno's front row attack has been completely shut down by Shiraiterizawa's peculiar blocking. Kunimura Naoto's side as well. That blocker is on another level. Right at the last moment, he shifts his arm and catches Karasuno's number 10 off guard. Exactly. Heiji Yoshino nodded. His blocking is unpredictable. If that little spiker keeps attacking the same way, then he's just handing over free points to Shiraiterizawa. Risk and reward go hand in hand. While the crowd discussed, the game raged on. With Ushijima in the front row, it was like unleashing a tiger. Right away, he scored 2 consecutive points. Karasuno's blockers barely posed a threat to him. Against a power hitter like Ushiwaka, timing was everything. Without the sheer physical ability to match him, the only chance of stopping him was striking at the perfect moment. But Karasuno wasn't quite at that level yet. And Ushiwaka's angles were lethal. He deliberately avoided Karasuno's strongest receivers, targeting weaker areas of the kurite. Chirping. The whistle blew again. Shiraiterizawa served. Kageyama analyzed the opposing formation, pressure mounting. How should he attack to avoid their block? An option was to set to Akira in the back row. But Akira was heavily guarded even in the back row, two defenders shadowed him. If his spike got picked up by Shiratorizawa's libero, Karasuno's momentum would take a hit. But passing to anyone else. So far, their attacks had been getting shut down. That bizarre middle blocker had single-handedly stopped most of their offense. Yet, Kageyama had no more time to think. A perfect receive had already set the play in motion. Whoosh! As Kageyama jumped, his peripheral vision locked onto the opposing blockers. Huh! A realization hit him. The strange middle blocker was hyper-focused on Hinata, who was running as a decoy. He was glancing between the two other attackers as well. Meanwhile, the two remaining blockers were solely tracking Akira, who was approaching from the back row. A golden opportunity. In that instant, the attackers had drawn most of the defense's attention. As Kageyama leaped to set, his hands suddenly shifted. Bam! Tendo reacted, realizing Kageyama's trick. No way, he lunged, trying to block, but it was too late. The ball sailed past, out of reach. Bang! The ball struck the ground. Chirping. Phew. Not bad. That's the genius setter from Kitagawa Daiki for you. In the stands, Mitsuda watched in amusement. Ushiwaka got 2 points, and Kageyama countered immediately. Karasuno is NT backing down. Kunimura Naoto nodded, excited. Next rotation, Akira moves to the front row. Now it's Shiratorizawa's turn to be worried. Sure enough, as Akira rotated into the front row, the energy in Shiratorizawa's formation changed. His sharp gaze swept over them, and a subtle smile formed on his lips. But to the opposing players, it felt like a mountain of pressure. It was as if his eyes could see right through their defense. There was an undeniable intensity lurking beneath his composed exterior. For Shiratorizawa, the real battle was about to begin. Chirping. The whistle blew. Karasuno's serve. Shiratorizawa received it cleanly. As the ball floated toward the setter, Kenjiro Shirabu hesitated for just a split second. Coach Washijo's words echoed in his mind from the previous timeout. Rely on your ace. And so, his decision was made. He set the ball to Ushijima. After all, only their ace could overpower Karasuno. Chapter 68, Match, 7, Seeing Kenjiro Shirabu's pass, Wakatoshi Ushijima's eyes immediately sharpened. The intensity of his focus condensed in an instant. Block the cross shot. Akira whispered to the two teammates beside him. But this time, Ushijima made a different choice. He aimed for a straight line dunk, intending to overpower the block with sheer force. Wow! What a player who refuses to back down! Naoto Kunimura in the audience exclaimed with excitement. Wait, something's off. Mitsuda suddenly interjected. Smack. Although Ushijima went for a forceful, straight-line spike, he specifically targeted Tsukishima's position in the block. A ruthless move. It touched his fingertips. Even though Akira's timing for the block was perfect, Tsukishima hadn't fully braced for the impact of the spike. Combined with Ushijima's overwhelming power, the block couldn't fully contain it. But Akira turned slightly, watching the ball ricochet upward. That was enough. Tanaka, positioned in the back row, reacted in time and managed to receive the ball cleanly. Immediately, Shiratorizawa's three front row players tensed. They knew. This was it. Kageyama was undoubtedly going to set up Akira for a counter-attack, aiming to regain momentum for Karasuno. Come on. Let's see it. Tendo Satori, on the other side of the net, whispered, eyes gleaming with excitement. Now, I'm really in the zone. How will he deal with Shiratorizawa's middle blocker? Kunimura Naoto pondered from the stands. That guy's blocks have been unreal throughout the match. This could become a mental hurdle for Kei Arasuno's attackers, he added, his voice laced with concern. Yoshino Heiji, standing beside him, frowned slightly. If Akira's spike gets shut down again, it'll be a devastating blow to Karasuno's morale. But time for speculation had run out. The ball was already in play, and Akira had made his approach. Boom! As he leaped high, Kageyama's set was placed perfectly for him. Whoosh! All three of Shirei Dorizawa's blockers jumped simultaneously. They were aiming to shut down Akira's straight-line shot. From what they had analyzed in previous plays, Akira typically aimed for diagonal attacks. While he had the ability to break through Shirei Dorizawa's blockers head-on, doing so would cost extra stamina. Diagonal attacks were the more energy-efficient choice, as he could either go for a sharp angle or a wider cross-court shot. But at this moment, Tendo Satori, positioned at the edge of the block, grinned wildly. Perhaps due to his previous successful blocks against Karasuno, he made a daring move. Tendo Satori fully extended his arms, deliberately sealing off Akira's diagonal shot path. I got you. For a brief moment, Akira looked surprised by the sudden shift. Then, the corner of his mouth curled into an amused smirk. Who gave you that confidence? Bang! The sheer force of Akira's spike sent Tendo Satori reeling backward. The volleyball rocketed off his fingertips, bypassing, and landed with a thunderous thud, bouncing into the audience seats. The unstoppable power behind the spike left everyone in stunned silence. Tendo Satori clutched his left hand, a bead of cold sweat forming on his forehead. Satori-senpai. Are you okay? Goshiki Tsutomu called out, stepping forward in concern. The rest of Shirei Dorizawa's team quickly gathered around. I'm fine. Tendo gritted his teeth. Just, sprained my fingers a little. Tweet. Watching from the sidelines, Coach Tanji Washijo immediately signaled for a timeout. How is it? He asked, expression unreadable. Do you need to be subbed out? No way. Tendo stubbornly shook his head. Just wrap it with tape. I'm not sitting this out. Washijo let out a low scoff before muttering, you should use your brain a little more out there. And gauge your own strength before making reckless decisions. Yes, sir. I can't believe it. Kunimura Naoto's excitement was palpable from the stands. That so-called unbreakable block was completely overpowered. Now that's how a real man plays volleyball. He clenched his fists and punched the air triumphantly. That's exactly how I'll play from now on. If I ever face a blocker, I'll crush them. No matter who it is, Before he could finish his dramatic declaration, Mitsuda and Yoshino Heiji grabbed him, covering his mouth. MMMPH. Mitsuda, what are you doing? Baka. We are in public. Yoshino hissed under his breath. Everyone's looking at us now, you idiot. Settle down. Mitsuda, nervously sweating, stood up and gave a series of awkward bows to the surrounding audience members. Sorry. Really sorry about that. After the timeout, Shirei Dorizawa returned to the court, their focus unshaken. Their mental resilience had been honed through countless matches. This was the true strength of an elite team. No matter what setbacks they faced, they refused to falter. Watch the cross-court shot. Boom. No matter if Shirei Dorizawa adjusted to block straight or diagonal shots. Their back row defenders struggled to keep up with Akira's raw power. As the match progressed, he began to utilize techniques reminiscent of his battles against Aoba Josai. A top spin spike. By applying spin to the ball on impact, Akira made it even more difficult for Shirei Dorizawa's defenders to control their passes. This technique, combined with his sheer power, resulted in devastatingly unpredictable shots. Several rallies later, The Shirei Dorizawa back row was in complete disarray. Goshiki Tsutomu and the others scrambled to adjust, their receptions faltering. At this moment, they felt like they were reliving their early days of volleyball training. Fumbling passes. Desperate lunges. Constantly chasing the ball. What's going on? The audience murmured in confusion. Why is Shirei Dorizawa's reception so shaky all of a sudden? Are their first years just struggling with basic skills? No way. If it was just a technical issue, their libero would have been able to adjust. As the game intensified, the spectators broke into heated discussions, each offering their own theories. But deep down, even the Shirei Dorizawa players knew the real reason. It wasn't a lack of skill. It was Akira's unstoppable attack power. I'll upload remaining chapters later. Chapter 69, Match 8, It can't be. Definitely not. Shirei Dorizawa is wrong. In the audience, murmurs of disbelief grew louder as some spectators even began arguing amongst themselves. Yoshino Heiji furrowed his brows, staring at the court with confusion. Shhh. That shouldn't have happened, he muttered. Shirei Dorizawa's libero is obviously quite good. But how could they have fumbled that receive just now? He's been consistent all match, and Karasuno's number 7 didn't even use his full power. The ball wasn't even that fast. This is just bizarre. I'm afraid this isn't just a libero's mistake. Mitsuda Takesa stared at the scene, his brows deeply knitted. Shirei Dorizawa is one of the strongest teams in high school volleyball. There's no way all three players in the back row would fail to receive at the same time. The issue must be with the spiker. What? Kunimura Naoto said in shock. Isn't TS just a simple reception error? You're saying the fault lies with the attacker. Hey, Musashi, have you ever seen him spike like that before? Yoshino Heiji's curiosity piqued. Nope. Mitsuda Takesa sighed, feeling defeated. Why do I feel like a fake teammate? I literally played a match with him, and I still don't know his real strength. Am I really that weak? Not even worth his full effort. Wait. Kunimura, usually the least perceptive, suddenly caught onto something. This kind of mistake. He paused, eyes narrowing. Doesn't this feel like it's due to spin? Spin. The two beside him exchanged glances, puzzled. But under normal circumstances, when someone spikes with a left or right-handed hit, the trajectory naturally veers slightly in that direction. His shot, however, was perfectly straight, just an ordinary downward spin. Spin, 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 libero. Kunimura mumbled under his breath, trying to grasp the thought slipping through his mind. Takesa Mitsuda and Heiji Yoshino watched him shake his head in frustration before turning back to the game. On the commentary bench, Eri was leaning forward, eyes sharp with intrigue. With his trained eyes, he had caught the subtle irregularity in Akira's spike. But he couldn't comprehend how Akira had incorporated such a spin into what should have been a straightforward downward smash. It was something he had never seen before. Hey! Beside him, Yasuda Takano covered his mouth and muttered, even Shirei Dorizawa, coached by Washijo sensei, is struggling. How did that smash force an error? Eri turned to him, voice low. Takano-san, please stay calm. This isn't an ordinary spike. Huh? Takano's eyes widened. You mean? Yes. The problem is Karasuno's No 7, the spiker. Takano turned back to the court, staring at Akira with newfound intrigue. The spiker, huh? Bang. A resounding impact echoed through the gym as Yamagata Hayato attempted to receive another one of Akira's spikes. Phew. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he stared down at his RMS in disbelief. Why does it feel like this? Could it be, is he left-handed? No, that's not right. Yes, but also no. Cold sweat trickled down Yamagata's back. Even though his teammates in the front row hadn't scolded him, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. And worse yet, he could feel it. From the coach's bench, Washijo Tanji's piercing gaze bore into him like a knife. Chirp. A timeout was called, and Yamagata trudged toward the rest area, only to be intercepted halfway. Explain. Washijo's voice was low, eyes still fixed on the game. But that only made Yamagata's panic spike higher. His spike. Yamagata swallowed hard, struggling to find the words. It switches hands. He immediately regretted saying it. Anyone watching could clearly see Akira had been using his right hand the entire time. Yet he had blurted out such nonsense. More sweat poured down his forehead. He braced himself for an outburst, but to his shock, Washijo only gave a slight nod and motioned for Hime to go back. Is he waiting until after the match to punish me? Yamagata trudged toward the rest area, feeling the eyes of the substitute players on him. What luck, dude. Semi-Ida clapped a hand on his shoulder, looking almost proud. If this was the finals, you'd be dead meat. Whew. That scared me to death just now. Yamagata exhaled. You have no idea what I just said to him. Wait, you actually answered back. Semi stared at him like he had grown a second head. It wasn't meant to be defiance. Yamagata protested weakly. I was just trying to explain the situation. His teammates leaned in curiously. I told him, the spiker was alternating between his left and right hand. Silence. Then pft. Ahem cough ha. Choked laughter erupted around him. Semi's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. You what? He snuck a glance at Washijo, sitting not far away, then turned back to Yamagata in horror. Are you insane? I know. Yamagata buried his face in his hands. I realized the second I said it. You're done for, dude. Semi clapped his shoulder again, this time in sympathy. You just insulted Washijo-sensei's intelligence. He's calm now, but I guarantee you he's fuming inside. You're so dead after this match. Yeah, Hayato, bet our start writing your will now. Yamagata groaned, bracing himself for the impending doom. On the court, Akira adjusted his wristbands, completely oblivious to the chaos he had caused off the court. The game continued, but one thing was clear to everyone watching, this wasn't just another match. This was something entirely new. Chapter 70, Match 9, in the coach's dugout, Sato looked slightly embarrassed. Yamagata Hayato's words just now had unsettled him. It's okay. I don't blame them. I think I understand what's going on. Huh. Sato turned to Washijo-sensei, surprised. You mean, it wasn't their mistake? Washijo shook his head and said, a single player failing to receive it could be a mistake. But 3 players have picked up the same ball multiple times. If they're managing to receive it some of the time, how can this still be called a mistake? The problem isn't with them, it's with that number 7 player. He folded his arms. I'll ask them about it when we get a technical timeout. The exchange outside the court didn't interrupt the game's flow, and Yamagata was still moving in and out of plays. As Karasuno's attacks kept succeeding, the tension among Shiratorizawa's players steadily grew. Ushijima Wakatoshi was still scoring, but each point felt harder to achieve. Unlike Akira's unpredictable spikes, Ushijima's sheer offensive power allowed him to keep racking up points. However, every point now required immense effort. If he spiked along the trajectory the blockers set for him, the back row defense was waiting to pick it up. So, he had to take risks breaking through the block or avoiding Akira's positioning to increase his scoring chances. With rotations in play, Tanaka-ryu Onosuke had now moved to the front row. Bang! Ack! After managing to block Ushijima's spike, Tanaka stared at his hands in disbelief. What the? Shocked, he looked at Ushijima's back on the other side of the net. His spikes, they feel even heavier than before. A slow starter, Kageyama Tobio muttered nearby. He's finally getting warmed up. But they weren't the only ones feeling the shift. Ushijima himself was experiencing something different. From the beginning of the match, the space left for him to attack had been getting narrower and narrower. Karasuno's number 7 Akira was constantly shrinking his offensive range. The gradually compressed court space made Ushijima feel something unfamiliar. Pressure. That's why he had chosen to break through the block earlier. But now, even when avoiding the blockers, a strange sensation crept in. Danger. A warning sign flared in his instincts. I'm about to be stopped. Yet, he couldn't understand why. Even under this psychological burden, Ushijima still maintained incredible efficiency. That alone was proof of his status as Shiratorizawa's ace. Bang. Another powerful spike. Touch. Tanaka turned around, shouting as the ball was deflected. A chance ball. Nishinoya scrambled to get under it, sending it perfectly into position. Kageyama was already moving. Jump. Brush. Right side attack. A clean back set sent the ball to Akira. Cross court. The cross court shot was blocked, but Akira was calm. With no hesitation, he went for the line shot. Yamagata, positioned behind the blockers, was already reading the attack. But a familiar dread washed over him. Is this left-handed or right-handed? Every reception against Akira was mental torture. Each time, he had to make a split-second guess. If he predicted correctly, he could receive the ball. If he guessed wrong, it would ricochet uncontrollably. Left-handed. Last time was right-handed, so this time it should be left-handed. Yamagata's mind raced. In truth, he was only reassuring himself. Akira's spin direction had no pattern. Raising his left arm slightly, he positioned himself to receive the ball with his right bang. A dull thud. Damn. His heart dropped. This time, it wasn't side spin. Just a standard topspin ball. The ball deflected sharply to the right side of the court. Save it. Ohira Rayon sprinted towards it. Dive. Slap. Though he barely managed to keep it in play, the ball's height was too low for anyone to follow up. It hit the ground. Tweet. The whistle rang out. Karasuno 16-13 Shiratorizawa. Second technical timeout. We're doing well so far. Ukai Kaishin said firmly, gathering his team. But compared to Shiratorizawa, we lack experience in high-pressure matches. He glanced at his players. Don't get cocky. The deeper this match goes, the stronger they'll get. Yes. On Shiratorizawa's side, the mood was far from relaxed. Washijo-sensei stood in the center of his players, scanning them one by one. We don't have time. Tell me about that last play. Why couldn't you receive it? A moment of silence. Finally, Gashiki Tsutomu spoke up. That number 7, he can change the ball's spin direction. One moment it's left-handed, the next it's right-handed. If we don't judge it correctly, the ball just bounces off uncontrollably. Left-handed? Right-handed? Washijo frowned. Looking around, he saw the others nodding in agreement. Recalling Yamagata's earlier struggles, his frown deepened. Now wasn't the time to dwell on how Akira executed those shots. They needed a solution. Fast. He thought hard, but as the timeout ticked down, no clear answer came. Yet, as an experienced coach, he knew he had to give them something. Even if it wasn't a perfect solution. If you can't judge the spin, then send the ball upwards. Make it go as high as possible. That way, the sideways force will be reduced, and others will have time to react. His gaze shifted to Shirabu Kenjiro. Shirabu, you'll have to run more. Shirabu paled. If the first touch was farther from the net, the setter would have to cover a greater distance, wearing them down faster. If you really can keep up, swap with semi. Understood. Let me know if there are any mistakes. Chapter 71, Match, 10, Bang. When the timeout ended, both teams returned to the court. Washijo's adjustments were about to take effect. Cross. As the front row moved to block, he also signaled to Yamagata Hayato in the back row. Yamagata quickly positioned himself behind the straight path to defend. Smack. This time, Yamagata didn't blindly guess the spin of the spike as he had before. Instead, he read the trajectory and struck upwards with force. Left. The ball soared high towards the left side of the court. Kenjiro Shirabu sprinted in that direction. Just as the ball was about to fly out of bounds, he managed to barely reach it. Bang. With a single, controlled touch, he sent the ball back toward the center of the court. That second setter has great technique. In the audience, a reporter, Takeshi Mitsuda, looked surprised. He actually managed to keep that ball in play so cleanly. That's Shirei Terizawa for you. The undisputed kings of Miyagi. Here it comes. Ushijima is going to spike. Boom. A monstrous straight shot blasted right through Tanaka's block and hit the floor for a point. Nishinoya, diving desperately, was just a second too late. Frustrated, he clenched his fists, gritting his teeth as he walked back into position. Next time, I'm getting that ball. It looks like Shirei Terizawa has found a way to deal with those spikes. Mitsuda spoke with some amazement. Dealing with it? Heiji Yoshino, another commentator, smirked. They're just stalling for time. Huh. This constant running takes a massive toll on stamina, Yoshino explained. Not only that, but it will eventually lower the accuracy of their sets. Shirabu had no choice but to go for that last-ditch set just now. If he keeps making these long sprints, he's bound to mess up eventually. But doesn't Shirei Terizawa have a backup setter? Mitsuda asked hesitantly. Even if they do, what does it matter? A setter can only be subbed in once per match. When Shirabu is completely drained, do they switch him out? What if the match drags into 5 sets? Both setters will be exhausted. Heiji Yoshino saw through Shirei Terizawa's strategy. It was like drinking water to quench thirst, just a temporary fix. Now that you put it that way, you're right. Washijo never planned for the match to go to 5 sets. If they couldn't close it out in 3 or 4, it would mean they had already lost control of the game. And if that happened, they were doomed. Because he had studied Akira's matches. Once Akira faced an opponent, he analyzed them quickly. Bit by bit, breaking them down, observing, learning. And then with perfect precision, striking at their weakest point. That suffocating pressure only led to one thing: despair. Smack. Touch shot. I got it. The match continued. Even though Washijo's strategy was a temporary fix, it had stopped Shirei Terizawa from falling apart. They hadn't closed the gap with Karasuno yet. But they also weren't falling further behind. And sometimes, they even managed to tie the score. However, as the match progressed, 20 points, 22 points, 24, match point. Karasuno had reached match point. They led 24-23. One more point, and they would win the first set. In the coaching area, Yukai clenched his fists nervously. Washijo, too, was tense. His hands were balled into fists, his eyes locked onto the court. Both Akira and Ushijima were in the back row now. This point would be decided by the front row's performance. Smack. The serve flew in, and Karasuno moved into position. Akira and Nishinoya quickly spread out, ready to receive. But this wasn't an ideal situation for Karasuno. Shiratorizawa had the serve advantage and would attack first. And with Akira in the back row, their blocking force was weaker. If they couldn't defend this attack, the score would be tied again. Smack. As expected. Gashiki received perfectly. Shirabu jumped, setting the ball a perfect toss to the ace. Ushijima understood immediately, accelerating towards the 3-meter line. He leaped before it. Block him. Karasuno's front row shouted in unison. They had to at least slow him down. But Ushijima's attack was at full power. Boom. His spike blasted straight through Tsukishima's block. The ball arakited toward the floor, but just before it could hit, a hand shot out between the ball and the ground. Nishinoya. First touch. Keep it up. He pushed off the floor, his voice echoing through the gym. Kageyama, stunned for a split second, snapped into action. There was no time for hesitation. He sprinted to the falling ball and jumped. This one's for our ace. Akira saw the set coming and didn't hesitate. He charged forward from the back row, leaping just before the 3-meter line. Boom. His foot hit the floor like a drum beat of war. At the peak of his jump, Kageyama's set reached him. Stop him. Shiratorizawa's blockers yelled in unison. Washijo gripped the hem of his coat, palms drenched in sweat. All eyes locked on this moment. Boom. A blinding white blur cut through the air, wrapped in a spiraling burst of energy. Shiratorizawa's blockers didn't even touch it. Like a meteor blazing through the sky, the ball soared past their hands. Boom. Shiratorizawa's libero dived, but he was a moment too late. The ball slammed into the wooden floor. Then bounced far out of reach. Tweet. Karasuno 25-23 Shiratorizawa. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Match, 11, with the landing of this ball, the entire audience erupted in an uproar. This. What a powerful spike. Shiratorizawa actually lost to Karasuno in the first set. Am I dreaming? This is Shiratorizawa. One of the strongest schools. In all of Miyagi Prefecture, only Aoba Josai has ever managed to take a set from them, and even then, only once, or Chui Ce. Shiratorizawa, losing. Is that even possible? Just what kind of team is Karasuno, and how are they strong enough to challenge Shiratorizawa? Why have I never heard of them being this powerful before? Especially that No 7 Akira. His performance is on par with Ushijima. Could he actually be one of the top 3 aces in the country? That sounds impossible. Shiratorizawa will definitely come back in the next set. After all, Ushijima only gets stronger the more he plays. The audience buzzed with excitement, but on the court, Shiratorizawa's players stood in silence. Coach Washijo's eyes scanned the team, but no one dared meet his gaze. Do you have anything to say? He finally spoke. Silence. Then, Washijo suddenly raised his voice. It's just one set. The match isn't over yet. His sharp eyes swept across his players. Are you all scared? Hearing his words, everyone snapped to attention. No, they responded in unison. The next set, we will win. Gashiki clenched his fists, his voice filled with determination. Washijo turned his attention to Ushijima. What about you, Ushijima? Ushijima's deep voice rang out, firm and unwavering. I won't lose to him again. Seeing Ushijima's unwavering resolve, Washijo nodded in approval. Wow! That Back-row attack just now was insane. Kunimura Naoto's voice was filled with excitement. I swear, even from the stands, I felt the wind from that spike. I wish I could experience a spike like that firsthand. Mitsuda and Naoto exchanged glances. Naoto might have been exaggerating, but they understood his sentiment. Even from the stands, they had felt the sheer power behind Akira's spike. They couldn't help but wonder, could we even receive a spike like that? Not far from them, a man sat alone, looking completely out of place. Despite the summer heat, he was bundled up in a heavy brown coat, a black cap pulled low over his face, dark sunglasses covering his eyes, and a mask concealing the rest of his face. His attire starkly contrasted with the crowd around him, who were dressed in light summer clothes. Oi, Oikawa. Never thought I'd actually find you here. A hand clapped down heavily on his shoulder. Huh, came a muffled, hoarse voice from behind the mask. This guy. The newcomer frowned. Are you seriously pretending I got the wrong person? Oikawa stiffened. Iwa-chan, he hissed, turning in his seat. Iwaizumi Hajime, Aobajosai's vice captain, sat down beside him, ignoring Oikawa's struggles as he yanked off his cap. No. Stop it. Oikawa protested. But it was too late. Iwaizumi pulled away Oikawa's disguise, revealing his familiar smirk. Oikawa pouted in frustration. Geez. I covered up so well, and you still found me. Sweating from the heat, he quickly stripped off his excessive layers. Ugh. I'm dying in this. Iwaizumi snorted. The stench of your arrogance is impossible to miss. Hey. That's just mean, Iwa-chan. Iwaizumi eyed him with irritation. Didn't you say you weren't coming to watch today? Oikawa's smirk widened. Well, no matter who wins today, I get to be entertained. Iwaizumi sighed. You're such a jerk, Oikawa. What, am I wrong? The look on Ushiwaka's face when they lost the first set priceless. Wait, Shiratorizawa actually lost the first set. Iwaizumi's eyes widened. He had arrived late and missed it? Oikawa grimaced. Ugh. That first year from Karasuno is really annoying. Akira. Iwaizumi guessed. Oikawa clicked his tongue. If it weren't for him, Shiratorizawa would have closed out the set easily. Iwaizumi nodded. If we face Karasuno again in Spring High, we have to find a way to shut him down. Exactly. Oikawa agreed. Both Karasuno and Shiratorizawa could be our opponents in Spring High. We should analyze them now. Hey. Who would have thought? Ushiwaka actually struggled against Akira. Before the match, the crowd had been divided. Some believed that Ushijima, with his national-level experience, would be unstoppable. After all, he was a third-year, far more seasoned than Karasuno's first-year wildcard. Others, however, had watched Akira dominate previous matches and knew his talent was no joke. They had argued fiercely before the game, some even placing private bets on the outcome. And now, Karasuno had actually taken the first set off of Miyagi's undisputed champions. Akira had completely stolen the spotlight. His supporters in the crowd were ecstatic. Ha! What did I tell you? A loud man in the stands laughed, standing triumphantly. Akira is the strongest ace among high schoolers in Miyagi right now. He wore an orange headband with Akira printed on it, while the group sitting beside him sported purple headbands with Ushijima written on them. They glared at him in frustration, unable to argue. You're getting cocky, one of them grumbled. Karasuno only won one set. Don't act like they've won the whole match. The man smirked. Heh. Talk to me when they win a set back. With that, he sat down just as the second set was about to begin. The tension in the air was electric. The match wasn't over yet. Chapter 73, Match 12, with the break over, the second set began. In terms of personnel, Yukai replaced Tanaka with Daichi, prioritizing a more defensive approach. This way, when Akira rotated to the back row, Karasuno's BLOing wouldn't be as vulnerable. After switching sides, Shiraiterizawa served first in the second set. Goshiki. Give them a solid serve. Got it? From the very beginning of the set, everyone could clearly feel the shift in Shiraiterizawa's energy. Perhaps losing the first set had awakened this powerhouse team of Miyagi Prefecture. Now, their desire to win was burning brighter than ever. They were determined to wipe away their earlier embarrassment. And Ushijima was in his best form yet. His serves became an even bigger threat to Karasuno's defense. Kunimura Naoto, a former player observing the match, spoke with surprise. Watching Ushijima's serve just reminded me of something. Why is it that Akira has such powerful spikes, but he hasn't used a jump serve? So far, he's only done a few float serves, and the rest were just standard ones. Hearing this, Mitsuda, another observer, smirked. I've seen him do jump serves before. Kunimura Naoto turned to him, intrigued. I thought he couldn't do it. Is his jump serve so bad that he's embarrassed to use it? TCH. Kunimura, you definitely don't want to face his jump serve. Mitsuda Musashi, another spectator, chuckled. I can tell you for sure none of the three of us here could receive it. Oh. Heiji Yoshino, another former player, leaned forward with interest. How strong is it? Mitsuda Musashi's expression grew thoughtful, his mind drifting back to a previous match. I remember, in that game, he only used 3 jump serves. 3. Consecutively. And the opponents were professional players. Even Eri-san, who played for the national team, couldn't receive a single one. What? Kunimura Naoto's eyes widened in shock. Not even once. You're kidding, right? Yoshino Heiji asked in disbelief. If a receiver missed a serve once, that was understandable. Some players had unusual serving habits, and it was natural to misread an unfamiliar trajectory the first time. Even if Akira's serve was unique, missing it once or twice could just be due to a lack of familiarity. But if it happened exactly as Mitsuda described, that meant Akira's serve was truly on another level. A group of professionals, including a former national team player like Eri, and none of them could adapt? I wouldn't make this up. Mitsuda Musashi shook his head at their skepticism and continued, the first 2 serves. They didn't even touch the ball. The third time, Eri-san managed to get a hand on it, but even then, the ball still hit the floor. No way. Kunimura Naoto and Yoshino Heiji exchanged stunned looks, momentarily speechless. After a long pause, Yoshino finally asked, so, does his serve have any special characteristics? Sigh. Mitsuda Musashi let out a slow exhale. A special characteristic? It's fast. Indescribably fast. From the moment he makes contact with the ball to the moment it lands, it's instantaneous. Hearing this simple but powerful description, Yoshino Heiji and Kunimura Naoto locked eyes again. If a player like Eri couldn't even receive it after 3 attempts, then the speed had to be unreal. While they were discussing, the game on the court continued. The second set was being played at an even higher level than the first. Shiraiterizawa was fighting tooth and nail for every single point. But Karasuno wasn't backing down either. Faced with Shiraiterizawa's relentless offense, they responded with just as much intensity. The score remained neck and neck, neither team letting the other gain a significant lead. And amid his fierce battle, Shirabu Kenjiro was beginning to show signs of fatigue. After setting the ball, he bent over, hands on his knees, gasping for air. Sweat dripped from his forehead, rolling off his chin onto the polished court. That last point meant they had made a clear mistake. His set was too low. The spiker had been forced into an awkward position, leading to a lost point. Tweet. The referee's whistle snapped him back to reality. Looking toward the bench, he saw Semi-Ida holding up the substitution board. Good work. As Shirabu walked off, Semi patted him on the shoulder. I'll leave it to you, Semi-san. Even as he left the court, Shirabu was still trying to catch his breath. Just as he was about to join the bench, Coach Sato stopped him. Shirabu, sit and rest right away. We need you to conserve your stamina for the next set. Shirabu blinked in surprise, then turned to look at Coach Washijo. Seeing no objections, he nodded and sat down. Meanwhile, Semi-Ida stepped onto the court, a third-year setter, now taking over the match. The reason he had lost his starting position to the second-year Shirabu wasn't because he lacked skill. If anything, Semi was exceptionally skilled. But his problem was his inability to suppress his own desire to shine. Rather than prioritizing the ace, he often tried to take matters into his own hands. That was why he wasn't a regular starter. And why he had so few opportunities to play. Now, standing on the court, Semi could feel the heat of competition rising in his veins. He clenched his fists, his sharp gaze sweeping across Karasuno's formation. All right. Let's see just how strong you really are, Karasuno. Chapter 74, Match, 13. As soon as Ida Semi arrived on the court, his distinct style of setting became evident. He repeatedly attempted to use his sets to bypass Karasuno's blockers instead of solely relying on Ushijima to score. Under his direction, Shiratorizawa's attack became more diverse. However, while this strategy helped conserve Ushijima's energy, the other attackers couldn't match his overwhelming power. Karasuno's front row blockers managed to shut down most of Shiratorizawa's alternative attacking options. Under these circumstances, Karasuno gradually began to pull ahead in the score. Bang! Left side. Block the cross. 3 blockers jumped simultaneously, sealing off the angle against Tendo Satora's spike. The cross-court shot was entirely cut off, leaving only a narrow straight shot lane. Bang! Though Tendo was primarily no WN for his blocking skills, that didn't mean he was weak at attacking. Shiratorizawa's players had few weaknesses. As the reigning champions of Miyagi Prefecture, the team was composed of the best players the region had to offer. Their starting lineup was filled with some of the strongest competitors in the prefecture. Swish! Seeing Tendo's spike in action, Ushijima's eyes narrowed from the sidelines. Here it comes again. That suffocating feeling. Not good. Realizing something, Ushijima rushed toward Tendo's landing zone. But he was too late. Just as Tendo was about to spike, Akira suddenly shifted his hands sideways. He sealed off the last remaining gap completely. A perfect block. Bang! The ball was completely shut down. Even though Ushijima had anticipated Akira's move, his diving attempt to save the ball was just a fraction too slow. Tweet. Karasuno scored again. Humph. Tendo clicked his tongue in frustration but quickly turned back to his teammates. Meanwhile, Ushijima stood deep in thought, watching the volleyball roll across the court. He's sealing off attacking lanes step by step. Noticing Ushijima's contemplative look, Akira smirked. Has the prey finally realized the trap? Then it's time to close the net completely. After the previous set, Akira had a solid understanding of Ushijima's spiking tendencies. Now, it was time to try stopping him entirely. Kageyama. Give us a strong serve. Kageyama's jump serve was still threatening, but Shiratorizawa's receive was solid. Ushijima. Semi's eyes lit up as he saw the perfect positioning for a set. Block the straight shot. In previous situations, Akira had instructed his blockers to cover the cross-court attack. But this time, he changed tactics. The other 2 blockers joined him in front of Ushijima's spike. Now, alongside Akira in the front row were Karasuno's most physically dominant blockers, Tsukishima and Daichi. When Akira adjusted his blocking strategy, it became significantly harder for Ushijima to find a clean shot. Meanwhile, Karasuno's back row defenders positioned themselves to cover the cross-court attack, with Kageyama backing up the three blockers for potential tips or soft shots. Based on Akira's analysis, Ushijima's most likely attack option in this situation was a near-net cross shot. Because when these three stood in Karasuno's front row, Ushijima typically tried to avoid the block rather than brute force through it. However, what Ushijima hadn't noticed was that Akira's jump was slightly different this time. At first glance, it looked like he was covering the straight shot. But when he actually jumped, Akira shifted to the cross-court lane. Boom! While midair, Ushijima caught a glimpse of Akira's movement from the corner of his eye. Huh! You think that's enough to stop me? Realizing that Akira had shifted to block his preferred attack angle, Ushijima remained composed. Because now, with Akira jumping diagonally, the straight shot lane was wide open. A faint smile formed at the corner of Ushijima's mouth. With his POW, adjusting his attack angle wasn't difficult. And he was confident that even after changing direction, his spike would remain just as lethal. Pay the price for your choice. Bang! At the last moment, Ushijima rotated his wrist, launching the ball straight into the exposed gap. A perfect counter. Shiratorizawa was about to reclaim momentum. This is the power of an ace. But just as the ball left Ushijima's hand, Akira twisted his arms midair. The gap was instantly sealed. Though his head and torso were positioned toward the right, his hands bent backward toward the left, forming a sharp, unexpected blocking angle. Bang! Ushijima's unstoppable spike crashed into Akira's arms. The invincible attack met an iron wall. Before Shiratorizawa's defenders could react, the ball rebounded straight to the floor. Ushijima's spike was blocked. Shiratorizawa lost another point. Tweet. Chapter 75, Match, 14. Seeing this blocker, Ere on the commentary table had a look of amazement in his eyes. Then he whispered to Takano beside him. What? What just happened? In the originally quiet audience, the sound of murmuring conversations spread. Ushijima's attack was stopped by that Karasuno's No 7. I didn't even see what happened. Didn't he jump to Tehi right? Ushijima also aimed to the right. But why did his block and Ushijima's spike appear on the left at the same time? I couldn't see clearly. Everything on the court changed too fast. Most of the spectators hadn't registered the rapid exchange between Akira and Ushijima just now. Their movements were simply too fast. It sounds like a lot, but in reality, this entire sequence took only a moment. From Ushijima's decision to change his spike direction to Akira's perfectly timed block. It all happened almost simultaneously. Did you catch what just happened? Heiji Yoshino asked, still stunned. Just as he had taken a sip of water, Ushijima's spike had already been stopped. He almost choked. I didn't see it clearly, but I can guess the general idea. As an experienced middle blocker, Mitsuda wasn't just skilled at attacking. His blocking was formidable as well. Just now, Akira made multiple calculations and completely controlled Ushijima's offensive mentality, he said, shaking his head with a wry smile. In previous blocks, they focused on stopping diagonal shots, but this time they prioritized the straight shot. This subtle shift made Ushijima slightly wary. He would naturally start questioning why Karasuno changed their blocking strategy. And then, when he saw Akira jumping to the diagonal, Ushijima thought he figured it out. Mitsuda paused, stroking his chin. The unknown is the most terrifying. When a threat is exposed, people let their guard down. When Ushijima discovered what he believed was the reason behind Karasuno's change, he immediately found a way to counter it. At that moment, Ushijima's vigilance was at its lowest. His mind relaxed, and instinctively, he aimed for the seemingly open path to score. But Akira had already set the trap. He was just waiting for Ushijima to step right into it. And then, he shut the door. This. Heiji Yoshino and Naoto Kunimura exchanged looks, both breaking into a cold sweat. Was there really that much psychological warfare happening just now? Kunimura clutched his chest in shock. That level of mind games. If I were playing against him, would he completely outplay me? Absolutely. Someone as straightforward as you would get a spike to the face every time. Yoshino teased, laughing. On the court, Ushijima stared at the volleyball rolling away into the back row, still in shock. And he wasn't the only one. Every single member of Shirei Dorizawa stood frozen, staring at the blocked ball. Since the start of the game, aside from the time Ushijima intentionally targeted the blocker's arms, this was the first time his spike had been stopped outright. And it happened in such a manner. Did this mean? No. The members of Shirei Dorizawa refused to entertain that thought. Ushijima. No need to say anything. Semi-Ida had just opened his mouth to speak but was immediately cut off by Ushijima. This is no one's fault but mine. He had realized it now. Looking back, every move Akira made had been purposeful. It was all designed to guide him step by step into a trap. When did he come to understand me so well? Not only had Akira anticipated his initial attack route, but even his instinctive reaction to an unexpected situation had been perfectly predicted. He had read his mind completely. Ushijima turned his gaze to Akira on the opposite side of the net. Then, he turned back toward his teammates. In the coach's dugout, Washijo Tanji clenched his fists tightly. No way. Can he already play at this level? Or was that just a coincidence? Washijo didn't want to overthink it, but his original plan to take down Karasuno in 4 sets was now uncertain. But at this point, Shirei Dorizawa had no choice. They had to fight with everything they had. Chirp. Karasuno had scored. The game continued with another serve. However, this time, Ushijima's gaze was sharp with determination. He locked onto the 3 blockers at the net, watching their movements closely. Avoid the block. Score. That was the role of an ace. That was the very meaning of an ace's existence. An ace who cannot score is no ace at all. Ushijima had made a mistake once, and his pride would not allow him to make another. Bang. After a well-received serve, Semi-Ida immediately scanned the court. 2 of Karasuno's third years were locked onto Ushijima. And that number 7. He seemed to be monitoring the movement of Karasuno's front row attackers, as if preparing to block them. But Semi knew that the moment he set the ball for Ushijima, Akira would rush forward and join the block instantly. That can't happen. Semi gritted his teeth. If he set the ball for anyone else, there was a higher risk of getting blocked. That number 7 from Karasuno, his aerial control was overwhelming. Even if he couldn't always directly stop the spike, he could consistently make contact with the ball. And if he touched it, the ball could turn into a chance play for Karasuno. That was something Shirei Dorizawa could not afford. But if he set the ball to Ushijima, they still had a great chance to score. They couldn't afford to lose F8 in their ace just because of one failed spike. Bang. Semi leaped and set the ball. With a sharp spin, the ball flew perfectly toward Ushijima. Akira, standing on the other side of the net, immediately sprang into position, ready to block alongside Karasuno's middle blockers. Chapter 76, Match, 15, Here it comes. Ushijima Wakatashi's eyes sharpened. Every time the ball was set for him, his focus reached its peak. Cross shot. This time, Karasuno had adjusted their blocking strategy, cover ing Ushijima's favored cross shot. But after what had just happened, everyone felt uneasy. The block that Akira pulled off earlier had been too sudden, too terrifying. But this time, Ushijima remained calm, his heart steady. He watched every move of the blockers carefully. However, unlike last time, Akira made no unusual moves. He allowed Ushijima to go for the straight shot. Spike. Score. Seeing this, Washijo Tanji exhaled deeply on the sidelines. That block earlier, was it just a fluke? But what no one in Shirei Terizawa, not even Washijo, realized. Akira turned around with a slight smirk. Sometimes, you don't tighten the net all at once, otherwise, you might scare the prey away too soon. It's like fishing. An experienced angler knows how to adjust the tension, reeling in at the right moment. And this wasn't just any fish. This was a fierce predator, a Shirei Terizawa ace with talons and a razor-sharp beak. One wrong move, and Akira could be the one getting devoured. With this point, Ushijima rotated to the back row. Similarly, if Karasuno scored again, Akira would also be sent to the back. Tweet. Following the referee's whistle, Ushijima stepped up to serve. His serve was another major weapon in Shirei Terizawa's arsenal. Boom. Fast. Violent. Unstoppable. This serve avoided Nishinoya, Karasuno's strongest receiver. Instead, it targeted Hineda's position. But Daichi had anticipated this. The moment the ball left Ushijima's hand, he adjusted and positioned himself toward Hineda's zone. Slap. As the match went on, Karasuno's captain was gradually adapting to Ushijima's devastating serves. Though the receive wasn't perfect, at least the ball didn't fly out uncontrollably. Sorry. Daichi gritted his teeth as the ball veered diagonally. I got it. Seeing that Kageyama wouldn't be able to set it properly, Azumina quickly sprinted into position. Whoosh. A quick toss. Seeing the trajectory, Akira's eyes narrowed, and he instantly ran toward the left side of the court. Noticing this, the three front row blockers from Shirei Terizawa immediately moved to shut him down. Even if they couldn't stop him, they needed to at least create an opportunity for their back row defenders to react. That was the only way to counter and score. Boom. Akira jumped and powered up for the spike. But, the ball never reached him. Just as Shirei Terizawa's blockers hesitated in confusion, bang. A loud impact rang through the court. Daichi had spiked it instead. What just happened? As the three front row blockers from Shirei Terizawa turned around, the Karasuno side had already erupted into cheers, high-fiving each other. The players on the court might not have fully realized what had happened, but the audience in the stands saw everything clearly. Oh no! Shirei Terizawa's front row blockers were completely fooled by Akira. Kunimura Naoto shouted in frustration. They actually fell for that. Just moments ago, the moment Azumina set the ball, Akira had known something was off. Not only was the set too short, but it was also too low. If he had attempted to spike it forcefully, it would have been blocked immediately. So without hesitation, he sprinted toward the opposite side of the court, drawing Shirei Terizawa's blockers with him. And Daichi understood his signal perfectly. Coincidentally, the anti-re Shirei Terizawa front row had been completely deceived by Akira. Even Akira himself hadn't expected such a perfect result. His original plan had only been to delay their reactions, slow down their approach to the net. But instead, all three blockers had completely followed him, leaving the entire Shirei Terizawa net wide open. You idiots! Do you have air in your heads? On the sidelines, Washijo yelled furiously. This was nothing new in Shirei Terizawa matches. The fiery coach never hesitated to call out his players' mistakes. And these scoldings were necessary. They were what allowed Shirei Terizawa to correct their errors immediately. Hearing Washijo's voice, the three blockers wiped cold sweat from their brows. Looking back, they realized just how badly they had messed up. Akira never should have been their target for that block. But in the heat of the moment, they had panicked. They were so focused on stopping him that they ignored everything else. Ha ha ha. Those three from Shirei Terizawa. I'm dying. In the stands, Oikawa Toro clutched his stomach, barely able to breathe from laughter. Some Shirei Terizawa fans turned to glare at him. Frightened, Iwaizumi Hajime quickly stepped forward and clamped a hand over Oikawa's mouth. MMMPHIWA-chan. Shut up. With Karasuno's latest point, Akira rotated to the back row. Now, both teams had their aces in the back. It was no longer a battle of trump cards. Now, it was time for the other players to step up. The intensity of the Karasuno vs Shirei Terizawa match only continued to rise. Chapter 77, Match, 16, Brush. Hineda's rapid approach to the net put pressure on Shirei Terizawa's defense once again. Even without Tendu in the front row, Karasuno's quick attacks continued to give Shirei Terizawa trouble. Bang! It looked like the set was meant for Hineda, but instead, the ball soared past him untouched. The two blockers from Shirei Terizawa jumped to intercept Hineda, only to realize too late that the ball was already flying elsewhere. The set was aimed at Tsukishima. But Shirei Terizawa wasn't so easily fooled. The moment Kageyama made his set, Goshiki had already rushed to the net, anticipating the attack. Boom! Tsukishima's spike met resistance, but instead of being blocked straight down, the ball ricocheted off Goshiki's hands and flew out of bounds. A touch-out point for Karasuno. This single play was just a glimpse of the intensity of the match. Both teams were constantly testing each other's skills, strategies, and determination. It wasn't just a setter's duel, nor was it just a battle of the spikers. Every player on the court front and back row was locked in a relentless war. Brush. Semi, after jumping for a set, chose a back row attack. Ushijima delivered a devastating spike, securing another P-ointment for Shirei Terizawa. In the following rally, Kageyama executed a sudden dump shot, catching Shirei Terizawa off guard and bringing the score back in Karasuno's favor. The point gap between the teams remained razor thin. Karasuno led slightly, but they could never break too far ahead. Meanwhile, Shirei Terizawa kept chasing, sometimes tying the score, but never managing to overtake them. The players rotated positions, Akira moving from the back row to the front, then back again. The game was so fierce that Ev and the spectators were holding their breath. Among the crowd were two individuals who had come all the way from Miyagi Arena to support Akira and Ushijima. Their hands clenched tightly, veins visible from tension. It felt as if they were on the court themselves, experiencing every high and low of the match. Every point won brought cheers, every lost rally, sighs of frustration. The scoreboard climbed past the 20s. Karasuno and Shirei Terizawa were neck and neck. At this stage, the match wasn't just a physical test, it was a mental battle. Fatigue weighed on the players. Reaction time slowed. Those with the most physically demanding roles, the libero and the setters, were especially affected. Liberos had the advantage of rotating off the court for brief rests. Setters, however, had no such luxury. Especially Shirei Terizawa's Semi. Every time Ushijima attacked, Semi had to sprint into position to set up the next play. His mind constantly worked to assess the situation, further draining his energy. Just as exhaustion began to show on his face, a whistle blew from the sidelines. Kenjiro Shirabu stood by the referee's table, number plate in hand, ready to substitute in. Semi, breathing heavily, turned to Washijo with a confused expression. "Why, Washijo-sensei?" he asked. "I can still rest and recover," Washijo cut in without looking up. "You're going back in later?" "Yes, sir." With Shirabu now on the court, Shirei Terizawa shifted their strategy. The focus became singular, set everything to Ushijima. It was a solid choice in the final stretch of the set. Shirabu's role was clear: give Ushijima the best possible sets and let him take control. 1 point for Shirei Darizawa. 1 for Karasuno. Another for Shirei Darizawa. Another for Karasuno. Shirei Darizawa was holding on desperately. They knew that if they lost this set, Karasuno would reach match point. A 2-0 lead in a best-of-5 match would be devastating. Conversely, Karasuno knew that securing this set would give them a massive advantage. Neither side was willing to give in. The score climbed past 30 points: Karasuno 31, Shirei Darizawa 30. And now, it was Karasuno's serve. Yukai made a bold call. "Tadashi, you're up." The entire Karasuno bench turned in shock. A serve specialist. Yukai's reasoning was simple: you've been working on that jump float, haven't you? Time to put it to the test. "Wait, who is this guy?" one of the spectators muttered. "He's on Karasuno's team. I've never seen him play. A pinch server? Can he handle this pressure? If he messes up, Karasuno loses their advantage." On the court, Yamaguchi felt his heartbeat pounding in his chest. For the first time, he wasn't watching from the bench. This was his first appearance in an official match. And it was against Shirei Darizawa, in the finals. In a critical moment. With all eyes on him. The doubts from the crowd, the expectations from his team, the fierce glares from Shirei Darizawa's blockers, it all pressed down on him. His legs felt weak. His hands trembled as he gripped the ball. "Yamaguchi." A familiar voice called from the bench. Sugawara, smiling, shouted, "Don't worry. Just serve a good ball." Yamaguchi turned stiffly, flashing a nervous, crooked smile. This was his chance. If he messed up now, would he ever get another opportunity? The whistle blew. 8 seconds to serve. He forced himself to focus. Where should he aim? His thoughts were sluggish, but one thing was clear: target the ace. Ushijima. Even if it didn't score, disrupting Shirei Darizawa's attack was crucial. His breathing was uneven. All he needed to do was serve before the time ran out. He took a step back and began his approach. His legs felt like lead. Each movement felt heavier than normal. Toss. His heart dropped. Too low. There was no time to fix it. He had to commit. Smack. The ball flew, its trajectory straight and spinless. Yamaguchi's training hadn't been in vain, but the toss was so low that the ball was heading straight for the net. Smack. It hit the tape. The entire gym gasped. The ball hovered on the net for a second, then rolled over to Shirei Darizawa's side. Panic. 3 Shirei Darizawa players dove forward. Shirabu managed to reach it, but the ball barely rebounded off his fingertips before dropping to the floor. Whistle. Point, Karasuno. Karasuno 32, Shirei Darizawa 30. The stadium erupted. Tadashi Yamaguchi had just scored at match point. Chapter 78, Match 17, Yamaguchi. Fantastic. Serve. The formidable opponent Karasuno had battled against for so long was finally defeated, thanks to Tadashi Yamaguchi's clutch float serve. Everyone in Karasuno erupted with excitement. Hinata and Tanaka rushed forward, tackling Yamaguchi in a hug, their faces filled with disbelief and joy. Even Tsukishima, who usually spoke in his signature cold tone, pushed his glasses up and muttered, "That serve was decent. I really did it?" Yamaguchi stared at the court, his ears ringing with the deafening cheers from his teammates. Across the net, Shirei Darizawa's players looked on with expressions of frustration and disbelief. "I scored on serve, against Shirei Darizawa." A wave of shock and exhilaration surged through him, nearly overwhelming his senses. All right. All right." On the sidelines, Coach Yokai clapped his hands and strode forward. Rest up and regain your strength. The match isn't over yet, we've still got a tough fight ahead. Push through the next set and take them down. Then, turning to Yamaguchi, he gave a small nod and added, the execution wasn't perfect, but the result was good. Just make sure you work through your nerves. You might not get this lucky next time. Yes, sir. In the stands, Shimada exhaled a deep breath, pressing a hand to his chest. Phew. That scared the hell out of me. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to send Yamaguchi in at such a crucial moment? Beside him, Taki smirked. Isn't he your apprentice? He did pretty well. Apprentice? No way. I only taught him how to do a float serve, I'm no master. Shimada shook his head furiously. Besides, he hasn't even perfected it yet. Ending him in at match point? That's just reckless. That serve was definitely a mistake. He just got lucky that it landed well. Sometimes, luck is a part of skill. Taki chuckled. Now that he's experienced a real victory, he'll gain confidence. The next time he's subbed in, he won't be as nervous. You've got a point. If I'd had the chance, I would have taught him some more tricks to manage his nerves before he stepped on the court. Shimada sighed, shaking his head in exasperation. Let's just hope he does even better next time. Unbelievable. In the stands, Naoto Kunimura exclaimed in surprise. Karasuno's pinch server just scored an ace. That was an incredibly risky float serve. It's clear he hasn't been using it for long. Beside him, Yoshino Heiji frowned, his expression tight with concern. It's not just about this one serve, it's about this whole match. Karasuno has reached match point, while Shirei Terizawa still hasn't responded. Mitsuda added with a hint of doubt, that's right. And what's even more baffling is Akira's spike. I've never seen such a bizarre technique before. How did it rebound like that off an opponent's arm? It's like the ball has a built-in spring. Exactly. Yoshino Heiji nodded eagerly, his interest piqued. Shirei Terizawa still hasn't figured out how to receive it. Their only response so far has been brute force. That means this spike might be impossible to counter. If I ever get the chance, I'd love to experience it myself. Kunimura blinked in confusion, a strange sense of familiarity creeping over him. For some reason, their conversation felt oddly reminiscent of something he had heard before. That spike, what's the secret behind it? He fell into deep thought. Across the court, Coach Washijo glared at his Shirei Terizawa players, his face lined with frustration. Mistakes. 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 Why are we making so many errors? Watch your footwork. Track the ball's movement more carefully. We could have prevented that lost point. The players hung their heads under his stern gaze. Yet, beneath his scowl, a flicker of helplessness flashed in Washijo's eyes. He knew the truth, mistakes were inevitable in a match of this caliber. A coach's role was to train his players to minimize errors, and Washijo had done exactly that. Shirei Terizawa had performed exceptionally well. But perfection was impossible. Their mistakes in this match had been far fewer than in previous games, and that alone was a testament to their skill. Shirei Terizawa had reached this level not because they were weak, far from it. Their opponents were just too strong. As the reigning powerhouse of Miyagi Prefecture, Shirei Terizawa had crushed every challenger for years. Every season, they steamrolled through the qualifiers, securing their spot at nationals with ease. No matter how much other teams trained and improved, none had ever managed to surpass Shirei Terizawa's sheer dominance. Their strength was undeniable, their place in the top 8 at nationals a consistent achievement. A team of their caliber would never be considered weak. Yet now, Karasuno was leading 2-0? Could it be? The once mighty crows had finally taken flight again? Chapter 79, Match 18. The intermission was brief. The players hadn't fully regained their stamina when the referee's whistle signaled the start of the third set. Both Karasuno and Shirei Terizawa took their places on the court. However, the atmosphere between the two teams was vastly different. Karasuno was radiating an intense fighting spirit, fully charged from their back-to-back set wins. Confidence surged through their veins, igniting their determination. They could almost taste victory. Shirei Terizawa, on the other hand, carried the weight of desperation. The two consecutive losses had rattled them, an unfamiliar feeling for a team used to dominance. Their pride as Miyagi's reigning champions was being put to the ultimate test. The realization was sinking in Karasuno, a team that barely scraped by in the preliminaries in previous years, was now challenging them in a way no one had before. Everyone recalled a conversation before the match. Ushijima had mentioned that Washijo, their coach, had tried to recruit a promising first year, but that player had chosen Karasuno instead. At the time, they had brushed it off. A first year? What difference could one player make? Potential didn't equal immediate results. Even Goshiki, despite his raw talent, was still developing under Washijo's training. But what they had failed to grasp then was that this wasn't just about potential. This was about Akira's sheer, undeniable strength. And in these past two sets, he had almost single-handedly disrupted Shirei Terizawa's rhythm. Not only did he have an offensive presence nearly on par with Ushijima's, but he had also managed to occasionally shut down Ushijima's spikes, something few players could claim to have done. Defensively, his blocking was a wall that Shirei Terizawa struggled to bypass. Was this really a first year? The whistle blew, snapping Shirei Terizawa out of their tee-hufts. Karasuno would serve first. After Shirei Terizawa received, Semi set the ball to Ushijima. This time, there was an added urgency in Shirei Terizawa's movements. But rather than panic, they were controlled. Their vast experience kept them grounded. One touch. Akira successfully blocked Ushijima's spike again. Though it wasn't a direct point, it forced a chance ball for Karasuno. Kageyama moved into position, eyes locked on the ball. With Akira drawing attention at the net, Tsukishima took advantage and executed a well-timed spike, scoring the first point for Karasuno. Shirei Terizawa responded in the next rally, Ushijima landing a sharp cross-court shot to tie the score. The serve shifted to Shirei Terizawa's side, but after a solid first pass, Akira came in with an unstoppable momentum, forcing a rushed set from Shirobue. The poorly positioned set resulted in a blocked attack. The set was turning into a fierce exchange. But as the game progressed, Shirei Terizawa began to realize something unsettling. Karasuno's success rate was increasing. Their attacks were more efficient. Their defense, tighter. Even Ushijima's usually unstoppable spikes were being neutralized more frequently. Finally, Shirei Terizawa is feeling the heat. Oikawa grinned, watching from the stands. He pumped his fist in excitement. Look at Ushiwaka's face. It's darker than charcoal. Iwaizumi sighed beside him. Would you focus, dumbass? We should be analyzing Karasuno's coordination and that no 7. Oikawa scratched his head sheepishly. But it's hard to be happy about Karasuno's success when they're going to win before we even get to crush them ourselves. Smack. Iwaizumi delivered a solid hit to the back of Oikawa's head. You're the worst. Mitsuda, watching intently, nodded. Sure, Terizawa has run into their biggest problem. What's that? Yoshino asked, curious. They don't have a weak point. Or rather, they didn't have one. Akira created one. Shirei Terizawa had never needed to rely on intricate teamwork or elaborate tactics. The IR strategy had always been brute force crushing opponents with superior individual talent. But now, their biggest advantage was turning into a liability. Akira had pinpointed their predictable playstyle and was dismantling it piece by piece. With every block, every attack, and every strategic movement, Akira was exposing the limitations of their one-dimensional approach. And Karasuno was capitalizing on it. For the first time in years, the undefeated champions of Miyagi were on the verge of falling. And The Crows were ready to take flight. Chapter 80, Match, 19, he made it? Heiji Yoshino swallowed hard, his eyes widening in disbelief. Is that even possible? Ah! The problem lies with Shirei Terizawa's second setter. Mitsuda let out a wry smile. When Shirei Terizawa first started using the setter run tactic to defend against Akira's spikes, he must have noticed something. Even though this strategy does have some effect in disrupting his spikes, it puts a tremendous strain on the second setter's stamina. Hearing this, Yoshino Heiji nodded in agreement. Mitsuda continued, the situation on the court now is that Akira is deliberately exploiting this flaw, continuously draining the second setter's stamina. Just now, there were a few moments where he could have easily exploited the gaps in Shirei Terizawa's defense and spiked straight to the ground to score. But instead, he deliberately targeted Shirei Terizawa's back row defenders. What? Yoshino gasped. You mean? Akira is controlling the way his spike rebounds off the receiver's arms. The farther the ball flies, the farther the second setter has to run, leading to even greater exhaustion. Mitsuda gave a knowing nod. Exactly. It sounds crazy, but that's precisely what's happening. A few moments ago, the second setter kept having to sprint to the edge of his reach just to get a touch on the ball. The ball would always fly just far enough to make him believe he could reach it, but by the time he got there, it was still just a bit too far. Even if he managed to set it, the pass wouldn't be ideal. Mitsuda rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It's like dangling a carrot in front of a horse just out of reach, pushing it to keep running harder. But no matter how much effort it puts in, the horse will never get to eat that carrot. That's exactly what's happening to Shirei Terizawa's second setter. The ball is always just close enough to keep him from giving up, forcing him to keep chasing it. But in the process, his stamina is draining at an alarming rate. Heiji Yoshino scratched his head, still somewhat skeptical. But, controlling how the ball rebounds after hitting the receiver's arms sounds impossible. There are so many variables. Even if Akira can precisely control the power and angle of his spikes, how could he possibly predict how the opponent will receive the ball? That's just unrealistic, isn't it? As the two discussed, the match on the court continued to intensify. Mitsuda pointed toward Akira's spiking path and said, at first, it seemed impossible. But look closely, this has been happening since the start of this set. Watch this play. It's happening again. Akira launched a sharp diagonal spike, targeting Yamagata Hayato in the back row. The ball ricocheted high to the left. Seeing this, Shirabu Kenjiro immediately sprinted without hesitation. Smack! Just as the volleyball was about to hit the floor, he barely managed to get a hand under it, forcing an extreme set to keep the play alive. However, due to his awkward positioning and exhaustion, his set wasn't accurate. Boom! Ohirashin's spike was shut down by Karasuno. Shirei Terizawa lost another point. Kenjiro Shirabu, frustrated by his poor set, clenched his fists tightly before returning to his position. Seeing this, Yoshino rubbed his face, feeling increasingly unsure about his earlier doubts. On the sidelines, Mitsuda continued, throughout this match, Akira has been slowly getting familiar with each Shirei Terizawa player's defensive habits, the way they receive, the strength they use, the angles they prefer. That's why his spikes have such a devastating effect. Hearing this, Heiji Yoshino could no longer deny the reality in front of him. He stared at the figure on the court, muttering, adjusting the power of each spike to manipulate the ball's rebounding trajectory. I've never seen anyone do that before. Just as he spoke, Kunimura Naoto, who had been deep in thought, suddenly straightened up, his eyes wide with realization. At that moment, it was as if a light bulb had gone off in his mind. Different power. It's not just about power. It's not just the power that's different. Kunimura Naoto suddenly shouted, his face lighting up with excitement. His outburst startled the two beside him. Yoshino frowned, clearly annoyed. Kunimura. What's wrong with you? Seriously, you've been acting weird this entire time. But Kunimura Naoto ignored him. Instead, he grabbed Yoshino by the shoulders, looking at him with intense eyes. Haha. Thanks for the reminder. I finally understand. I finally get it. It's not just the power, it's the way he's making contact with the ball. Heiji Yoshino, struggling against Kunimura's grip, groaned in frustration. What? What did you figure out this time? Let go of me. Chapter 81, Match, 20, Got what? Kunimura Naoto placed his hands on his waist and smiled proudly. Of course, I know how Akira's spike works. Hearing his words, the two looked at each other in disbelief. You mean? You're saying you can spike like that too? Since the very beginning, Kunimura had been deep in thought. The game on the court and the conversation between the two had become background noise to him. Neither Heiji Yoshino nor Mitsuda had expected that he had been analyzing the issue all along. Ahem. Hearing their words, Kunimura suddenly held back what he had wanted to blurt out. Of course not. Just because I know how he does it doesn't mean I can pull it off myself. Huh. It's enough to know how it's done. Tell us already. The two were now fully hooked, their curiosity piqued. They couldn't be blamed for their skepticism. Akira's spike was just too strange. Not only had they never seen anything like it, but they had also never even heard of such a technique before. They had tried to break it down logically but failed. And now Kunimura was saying he had figured it out? Seeing their eager expressions, Kunimura couldn't help but feel proud. Ha! You two laughed at me earlier for not having common sense. And no W, look who's short-sighted. What does this have to do with his spike? Stop stalling, Kunimura. Yoshino demanded. I'm not stalling. Kunimura Naoto shook his head. It's exactly what I mentioned earlier, he's imitating a left-handed spike. It's true. Mitsuda immediately reached out to touch his forehead. Kunimura, are you running a fever? There's no way a right-handed player can imitate a left-handed spike that precisely. Tisk. Just listen to me. The only one who can imitate a left-handed spike perfectly is Akira. Before the match, he must have specifically trained his Karasuno teammates to receive left-handed spikes so they could adapt quickly to Ushijima's attacks. Wait, do you have any proof? Mitsuda still seemed skeptical despite Kunimura's confidence. The proof is Akira's bizarre spike. Kunimura pointed toward the court. There, Akira had just scored another point using that unorthodox spike, all while forcing Shiratorizawa's second setter, Shirabu Kenjiro, to exhaust himself running across the court. Look at that. It's just like the first time someone faces a left-handed spiker. What? Both Yoshino and Mitsuda were stunned. They immediately turned their attention to the match. Every time Shiratorizawa's back row defenders tried to receive Akira's spike, the ball bounced unpredictably off their arms. This. Heiji Yoshino murmured, his voice tinged with shock. The first time someone faces a left-handed spiker, their receive looks like this. Their reception is unstable, even if they manage to get in the right position. The ball spins away from them. It's because they aren't used to the spin. Seeing their reactions, Kunimura Naoto grinned triumphantly. Haha. Looks like you two were wrong this time. Mitsuda took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. but Shiratorizawa's players must have practiced receiving left-handed spikes before. How could they still be struggling? And even if they weren't used to it at first, wouldn't they have adjusted by now? Kunimura clicked his tongue. Musashi. He continued, I knew you'd ask that. But who said Akira's spike is just an ordinary right-handed spike? What do you mean? Yoshino asked, now completely invested. If a natural right-handed player like Akira can imitate the spin of a left-handed spike, then what's stopping him from manipulating different spin variations altogether? Kunimura's words hit them like a revelation. Wait. Heiji Yoshino's eyes widened as he slapped his thigh. Why didn't I think of that? Receiving G, spiking, it's all connected. So that's it? Mitsuda muttered, struggling to process it all. Even though he had been reluctant to accept Kunimura's theory, he now had to admit it was the only plausible explanation. Kunimura, now fully in his element, continued enthusiastically. Akira is constantly altering the spin on his spikes. That's why Shiratorizawa's back row can't adjust to his attacks. They may get used to one type of spin, but the next spike has a completely different spin. And by the time they think they've adapted, he changes it again. No matter how much experience they have, they just can't catch up. That's insane. Mitsuda muttered, still watching the game unfold in disbelief. But how is he even doing it? Changing the spin force like that? Kunimura shrugged. That's something you'd have to ask him. I have no idea. Chirp. The match continued at full intensity. Kenjiro Shirabu had already been subbed out for Ida Semi due to exhaustion. On Karasuno's side, Kageyama was also replaced by Sugawara to give him a break. At the same time, Tanaka re-entered the game in place of Hinata. Compared to Kageyama, Sugawara lacked the sheer technical brilliance to execute monster quicks. However, his deep understanding of his teammates allowed him to deliver well-placed, comfortable sets. Akira had experienced this difference firsthand during Karasuno's training matches. If one were to compare setters, Sugawara's style was most similar to Shirabu's, both focused on tailoring their sets to their ace's strengths. Kageyama, on the other hand, had a play style reminiscent of Semi's. Both setters had a more forceful, individualistic approach to their sets. As Karasuno adjusted to the substitutions, there was a brief moment where their RHYT hum stiffened slightly. Shiratorizawa capitalized on this, scoring 2 consecutive points. However, that was all they could manage. Even though Shiratorizawa held a slight lead on the scoreboard, they had yet to pull away decisively. Faced with such a close and unpredictable match, even the composed players of Shiratorizawa were beginning to feel a rare sense of unease. Chapter 82, Match 21, the score had reached match point for Karasuno. Despite this, Karasuno's players remained composed. Even if they lost this set, they still had 2 more chances to secure victory. But for Shiratorizawa, it was different. This match was their last chance. If they lost here, the reigning champions of Miyagi Prefecture, the undefeated powerhouse Shiratorizawa, would suffer a crushing 3-0 defeat in the finals. That was simply unacceptable. Don't lose focus. This year, we will be the ones going to nationals. Ushijima Wakatashi's voice rang out, steady and commanding. Yes. Despite being a man of few words, every time he spoke, his teammates listened. Bang, left. Sugawara's setting was always precise and efficient, prioritizing scoring opportunities above all else. While he wasn't at the same technical level as Shiratorizawa's setters, his experience and teamwork compensated for it. Nishinoya. Swoosh, Tanaka Ryu Unosuke's spike was blocked, but at the last moment, Nishinoya performed a diving rolling thunder save, keeping the rally alive. Boom, without missing a beat, Azumina Asahi leaped up from Teehee's side, a quick attack. Point secured. The score was tied once again. As the serve rotated, Akira returned to the front row, and with his presence, Shiratorizawa's situation grew even more dire. It was as if he could read their habits, their patterns, the very play style, and then exploit them. Sugawara seemed to recognize this as well, feeding him more sets as the match progressed. From this moment on, Shiratorizawa's downfall became inevitable. Watching from the sidelines, Washija Tanji, Shiratorizawa's head coach, suddenly shook his head. He had already sensed it by the time the match had dragged into the third set. Shiratorizawa had almost no chance of turning things around. By the end of the second set, Akira had already started systematically dismantling their team's weaknesses. The most obvious proof of this was Ushijima's spikes. Since then, Akira had repeatedly shut down Ushijima's attacks at the net. And by the start of the third set, Akira had only intensified his efforts. What was even more terrifying, his blocking success rate was rising with each attempt. But even setting Akira's dominance aside, Shiratorizawa faced another major issue. They were about to run out of setters. Looking toward his bench, Washija saw Shirabu Kenjiro, still drenched in sweat, struggling to recover from the earlier sets. On the court, Semi-Ida was visibly slowing down. At this rate, Shiratorizawa would soon have no functioning setter left. No, Washija thought, his expression hardening. At the very least, we must win this set. With that resolve, he stood up and signaled for a timeout. Tweet, -o. Does Coach Washija have a counter strategy? In the stands, Yoshino Heiji tilted his head in curiosity. Do you think he can turn things around for Shiratorizawa? Washija Tanji was a well-respected coach, known throughout Miyagi for both his harsh training methods and his deep understanding of volleyball. His name carried weight even among teams that had played at nationals. Mitsuda, seated beside Yoshino, let out a deep sigh. Unless they can find a way to completely shut down Akira, he muttered, not even Washija can save them now. As Shiratorizawa returned to the court after the timeout, their strategy immediately became apparent. Wait, are they switching to a multi-setter system? Yoshino blurted out, eyes widening. Even the second setter is joining the attack. It looks promising. But Mitsuda shook his head, his brow furrowing in concern. This doesn't seem like Washija's usual approach. He muttered. It feels like a desperation move. Huh? Why? If Shiratorizawa had tried this strategy back in the second set, the score might be 1-1 right now. Not a chance, Mitsuda countered. This might work for a team like Aobajosai, but no tea for Shiratorizawa. Why not? Mitsuda gestured toward the court, where the cracks in Shiratorizawa's coordination were already beginning to show. During a crucial play, both Gashiki Tsutomu and Yamagata Hayato moved to receive the ball at the same time. They hesitated for just a moment, unsure who should take it, and in that instant, the ball hit the floor. Errors like these kept piling up. Shiratorizawa, a team that prided itself on individual strength, was struggling to adapt to this unfamiliar strategy. This isn't working, Yoshino muttered, stunned by the unfolding disaster. Mitsuda nodded grimly. And worst of all, his eyes darted toward Akira. He's already figured it out. If it's him, he'll exploit this weakness immediately. Chapter 83, Match, 22, just as Mitsuda's words fell, the situation on the court changed again. Bang! A spike slammed into the receiver. But after he picked up the ball, it spun unpredictably and flew toward the back of Wakatoshi Ushijima. Not far from him. There was no one better suited to receive this ball than Ushijima himself. Syllable. In desperation, Ushijima could only grit his teeth and pad the ball to the front row to assist his teammates in attacking. But because he was involved in the second touch, Ushijima would not be able to participate in this attack. This. Both Kunimura and Heiji Yoshino in the audience were dumbfounded. If it's a well-balanced team, it doesn't matter who attacks. But Shirei Terizawa is different. Their strongest trump card, Ushijima Wakatoshi, is the spearhead of the team's attack. Once Ushijima can't participate in the attack, Shirei Terizawa's offensive power will drop significantly. The consequences of this, I don't even need to say. Yoshino and Kunimura looked at each other, both realizing the terrifying implications. Heiji Yoshino stumbled over his words, only someone who can control the landing point of the ball so precisely could do this. It's like using the opposing receiver as a trampoline, sending the ball exactly where they want it. If it were anyone else, this would be impossible. Bang. The game continued. With this strategy in play, Washijo Tanji quickly discovered its flaws. Especially Akira's ability to control the ball's trajectory at will. It was almost like a cheat ability. But there was no immediate way to counter it. After all, Akira could alter the spin of the ball at will, while the receivers couldn't suddenly change their reception technique and habits. If they forced a change, it wouldn't just be a matter of unpredictable ball movement, it could make receiving impossible altogether. Bang. Shirei Terizawa's spike was received cleanly by Daiichi Sawamura in the back row. Sugawara jumped. Without hesitation, he set the ball directly to Akira, who was already sprinting into position. Bang. Facing Shirei Terizawa's tight straight ball block, Akira responded with a sharp cross shot, slicing past every single defender. Straight to the floor. Since Shirei Terizawa had changed tactics, Akira had shifted his focus from exhausting their setter to scoring directly. And the third year's Daiichi, Sugawara, and Asahi were rock solid. Their attacks might not be as unpredictable as Kageyama and Hineda's quicks, but their defense was outstanding. With Akira holding the front row block, scoring against Karasuno became even harder for Shirei Terizawa. But they refused to back down. The third set their last hope. Syllable. Another serve. Even against the towering wall in front of him, Ushijima caught the faint light of an opening in the dark sky. He landed a powerful spike score. That's what it means to be an ace. Even when the team is on the brink, the ace must rise above. But now, his stamina was nearly depleted. Ushijima panted heavily, sweat dripping from his forehead into his eyes, almost blinding him. His hair was soaked, clinging to his face. Throughout the match, Ushijima had launched the most attacks for his team. Even when Akira rotated to the back row, Karasuno still had Kageyama and Hineda's quick attack to handle the offensive pressure. But when Ushijima was in the back row, he had to shoulder the burden of back row attacks, which demanded even more energy. Because, against Karasuno's defense, not just anyone could score. Especially with Akira leading T-net defense, the difficulty increased drastically. So, as the ace, Ushijima bore the responsibility of scoring. No matter how exhausted he was, he had to attack. He had to score. That's the very existence of an ace. Looking at the scoreboard, both teams had passed 20 points, but Shirei Terizawa was still behind. Ida. Next ball, set it to me. Ushijima planted his hands on his knees, straightened up, and called out loudly. His voice rang through the court. Everyone on Shirei Terizawa turned their heads toward him, shocked. At that moment Ushijima's presence was immense. It felt like he was holding up the entire world. Even with all eyes on him, his focus never wavered. His eyes stayed locked on Karasuno's formation, already analyzing his next attack. Yes. Semi-Ida gritted his teeth and nodded determinedly. Damn it. It's my fault. I can't fool Karasuno's blockers, and now our ace has to take on this entire burden alone. Semi-Ida clenched his fists in frustration.